Superhumans. What is going on, guys? I hope you are all doing amazingly well. Just give it a second. Let everyone roll in. Hopefully, you can't hear the background noise. I'm out in like my little outdoor garage workout setup, and there's no AC out here. I'm wearing this because this is almost like a cooling layer. But it's getting pretty hot here in Tennessee in summertime. So as you guys know, we're on the walking treadmill. We're getting it done. But guys, I wanted to say, first of all, I appreciate all of you guys being here. Anyone who's coming back to watch the replay, what is up? And this is going to be a longer discussion, guys. And I want you guys to just kind of like chill out, take your time, come and go as you need. I would say if you really want to maximize your results in 2024, hang around and participate, like ask questions. Because as you guys might have seen, obviously this is a masterclass around the question of, if I personally had to lose 10 pounds of body fat and keep it off, what would I do? What are the exact levers I would pull? What are the exact things I would do to achieve that goal? So I'm going to be walking through all the different mechanics, all the nuts and bolts around that, because essentially, in many ways, that's kind of what I have been doing over the last, little while. And I'm telling you guys, there'll be things that I share with you guys today that you completely overlooked. And there'll be a lot of new stuff, and there'll be things that I'm kind of reaffirming that you already know, but you just got away from, right? So first of all, guys, and then we'll do a bit with them, obviously AMA. So ask me anything. So I've got a bunch of questions that were submitted, but I would also say to you guys, feel free to drop comments in. And let me know, like, what are your questions, right? Brian, Josh, what is up, guys? And I wanted to say also, we'll be taking a little quick bathroom break at 10 past 2, and then another one at 10 past 3. So I'm actually going to be going for a while today, because I wanted to give you guys a really good block of my time and attention, because I get a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions in messages, and it can be very difficult for me to respond to everyone's message. I get a lot of messages, especially on Facebook. And it would be like a full-time job trying to reply to everyone's messages properly. So this is my way of basically helping anyone and everyone who wants to jump on here. So first of all, guys, where are you guys tuning in from? So as you come in, let me know, where are you tuning in from? Where are you residing? Let me know that. We are in the beautiful Smoky Mountains. So we have some land. Hey, what's up, man? So we have some land in Weirs Valley, which is an area between Pigeon Forge and Townsend. It's a pretty Boise. Michael, what's up, buddy? Columbus, Ohio. Todd. Hey, man. Ohio. Yeah, so we're in Tennessee. So let me know where you're tuning in from first, guys. Let's see how much diversity we have. Indiana, Florida, Louisiana. Hey, Wendy. Yeah, so it's like it's a nice, sweaty Tennessee summer day here. Right now we're in our rental property while we go through the process of building our house. So we're in this area called Sevierville, which is just outside of Pigeon Forge. It's funny because Lauren, my wife, her family have been coming up here to the Smoky Mountains for decades. It's just a generational thing. Like Lauren's grandmother's in her 90s. She would come up here when she was 20 years old with Lauren's grandfather. And they would come up here and they would tent camp in Cades Cove and like the national park, man. Like black bears sniffing the tent and all sorts of stuff. And then when Lauren's dad was born, they would bring him up here when he was, 2 feet tall. And then Lauren's parents did the same with her. And then we were like, you know what? Like, because we were working remotely, as you guys know, and we were in Louisiana, and because that's where Lauren's from. And I was like, man, we're spending a lot of time up in the Smoky Mountains. Like, we love it up here. You know, we love this area. It's just so rustic, man. And I'm like, let's just move. Let's just go. Ryan, what's up? East of Nashville. And so, like, it's one of those things, guys, you know, and like one of the things I want to kind of share with you guys today is like, this is a longer discussion. So I don't want it to be this like really hardcore, intense, let me jam in as much stuff as possible and just like you drinking from an absolute fire hose and you just feel overwhelmed. I want to kind of weave in stories into it. I want to weave in stuff that, you know, like just basically sharing my thoughts on things, and then obviously tie in good real world tactics into all this stuff. Because, you know, I got this question, and the reason why I wanted the masterclass to be that question of, you know, if I had to lose 10 pounds quickly and keep it off, what would I do? So I thought it was a very good question, because with the emphasis on quickly, 10 pounds, specific number, like specific target, quickly, like as fast as possible, and keep it off. Because it's one thing to lose 10 pounds quickly. But if you lose 10 pounds quickly, typically it's very, very transient. I mean, how many people do you know, including maybe yourself, where you've done some sort of detox, some fasting protocol, some diet stint, where you're like, okay, I'm going to put my head down for 7 days, or, you know, 14 days or 28 days, and you just go nuts and you're just going hard, you know, hardcore, right? And then you just often think to yourself, man, I'm not going to be able to sustain this afterwards. So my whole thing is, how do we get to a place where we can pull the right levers and sustain it? So Josh, is what advice do you have for me to help? I want to help my father-in-law who had a stroke. Yeah. So let's just dive into little bits and pieces, guys. I mean, obviously the main, you know, I'll be talking about the main topic, but I do think kind of weaving in little bits of questions in here is a good thing, you know, so that way you guys can sort of interact with me, and feel like we can bounce ideas around. Ryan says Cades Cove is a gem, one of our favorite places in Tennessee. Yeah, man. I mean, it's amazing, right? It's very rustic, man. I love it. So yeah, Cades Cove. If you haven't been to Cades Cove, you come to the mountains, you've got to check out Cades Cove. So when it comes to strokes and stuff, so like you guys might have seen or seen my guy John Hardy. So on Facebook, he's like Wendy and John Hardy. But John Hardy is a guy that I met at the gym here in Tennessee. And he had a stroke. He had a pretty bad stroke last year, about 14 months ago. And at the time, it was bad, because like he'd gone from being, you know, deadlifting and being quite active to having a stroke and like sort of barely being able to walk at the time. And I want to share this stuff with you guys. Remember this: whenever I'm giving an answer to a question, even if it's like relating to a stroke, I'm always going to make it practical to all of you guys. That's what I like to do. I don't want to just answer the question and then everyone else is kind of sitting there thinking, well, like, I don't know anyone that's had a stroke. Like, I'm probably not at high risk of having a stroke. So like, should I even be here listening to this? And what I tell people is that very often you will find that feedback that helps something like recovery from a stroke, in as many ways, is the same feedback that you might want to have if you wanted to optimize your mental health, if you wanted to increase your longevity, if you wanted to reduce your chances of Alzheimer's, right? So like what I'm saying is that when it comes to health, there's like a lot of universal principles that transcend multiple things. And so what I would share with you is that even though this might relate to directly as a stroke, it's going to be one of those things where there will be benefit across the board. So like if you're dealing with mental health issues, or your energy's low, or you're feeling like you're not sleeping very well, there'll be things that I say that will relate to all of those things. So one of the things that is really important to think about when it comes to like strokes or anything like that is blood flow. So I would tell you that one of the biggest things is to focus, and when you focus on blood flow is going to help with everything. So blood flow is going to help with like mobilizing fat stores more efficiently. Come back to that 10 pound of body fat that you want to lose, right? It's going to help with improving brain function and sort of cognitive output because you're getting more oxygen transportation through the body. And that oxygen transportation is bringing nutrients and oxygen to your brain, to your systems. It's going to help with recovery because you're getting more nutrients and oxygen transported through your body more effectively. It's going to help speed up recovery, muscle protein synthesis, prevent like muscle protein breakdown as much. All the way to helping just improve your energy levels. Because think about this. Very often, if you are feeling low energy, sluggish, in part, you probably have poor circulation and sort of poor lymphatic drainage. And so circulation being like, your blood flow. And the reason why your energy is low is because your body's having to do a lot of work to pump that blood through your system. So it's having to work much harder than it should. And so some of the key principles typically are you've got to make sure that you're getting really hydrated. If you're not drinking enough fluids, your blood will be very thick. It's why they tell people when they go get blood work done, they'll often tell you to make sure that you drink plenty of water that morning of, right? So if you haven't had that suggestion, typically people will tell you that to drink a lot of water before you go get your blood work done, because that will help improve like that blood flow. It won't be as thick and viscous. And with that, what I would also say is things that are going to help with nitric oxide production. So if you go to like ChatGPT, for example, and you search healthy foods or things to help with nitric oxide production in the body. I mean, one straight out of the gate is beets, beet juice powder, beets. That's why you see me do beets every day. So with my meals and stuff that you see me post in my stories, there's a reason behind each thing. Like everything that's in there, it's not just in there because it just kind of fell into place by accident. It's in there because there's some intentionality behind the fact that I know that that serving of beets helps with nitric oxide production. And nitric oxide production helps with blood flow. And optimizing blood flow helps reduce stroke risk and everything else that I just mentioned. So we can dive into more about that because there will be things that I talk about in the, I want to lose 10 pounds of body fat quickly. What do I do? So that's the first thing. Another little bonus pro tip for you is there is a peptide called cerebrolysin. So obviously you need to just make sure that you do your research on peptides. But there's a peptide called cerebrolysin, and it's been shown in some Japanese and Russian research to be very, very, very effective for stroke patients in terms of brain regeneration and all kinds of amazing stuff. So, and what I would say, Jordan, if you're on as well, brother, maybe record everyone's questions and just kind of save them. And as we get towards the end, dump them in here for me. Just because if I'm going through stuff and there's questions kind of peppering in, it's just going to kind of make my focus is going to get real scattered. So we will cover everything. So we'll cover everything that's coming in. Because I've also got some questions that you guys had submitted too. So there's a lot of stuff. And don't worry, like if you hang around, I will address each of your questions in detail. Michael, yeah, beet supplements. Yes. Yeah, so I would say like beet juice powder is fine. I typically think, guys, like eating things in whole food form is always going to be the best bet, right? If you're eating things in whole food form, that's usually going to be your best bet. But if you need to get things in like a powder or, a supplement form, that's better, absolutely better than nothing. I mean, even things like a garlic supplement, garlic supplementation can help with blood flow and vascular health and all these different things. So you could eat, straight garlic if you want. You can cook with it if you want, but if you were to say get a garlic clove and dice it up, it releases this compound called allicin, allicin, allicin. And so when you chop it up, through the action of chopping it up, this byproduct called allicin is produced, and allicin helps with vascular health, cardiovascular health. So there's a lot of medicinal benefit with like plants, garlic, turmeric, right? All these things. So when it comes to losing body fat, one of the first things that I notice with people, right, is, and I've seen this with guys that have come to me, is that they'll try and lose some body fat, they'll try and lose some weight, but they lose a bunch of muscle in the process too. Like I've seen a couple of guys, in the last few months come to me with DEXA scans, and I didn't know like how they were training. I didn't really know how they were eating. They just kind of off doing their own thing. But they came to me and they lost some weight and they lost some body fat, but they lost a shit ton of muscle as well. And that's not ideal. And I would say like a lot of people probably fall into that category. The reason why you don't know it is because you're just not getting the DEXA scans done. But what you'd notice is that most people would probably lose muscle mass, and there's a few reasons why. And so I wanted to address that first, because guys, when it comes to getting lean, and I've talked to the musician Chris Daltrey that I coach, and I'm prepping him for his next music video. We're about like 2 weeks out now, so it's getting real close. So he's getting very lean now. I mean, I'm right there with him, so we're kind of doing it together. But I've really driven home and reinforced to him that your ability to retain muscle mass is so important when it comes to getting lean. So how do we do that? Like, you might say, I get it, Fraser, I understand what you're saying, but like, how? One of the things that I see people do when they're dieting down is, and I'm curious if you guys have done this as well, is they will start throwing in a lot of high rep sets. They'll go from like their normal workout and they'll start doing this sort of like cardio bunny workouts where they're doing like reps, volume, like sets of 20, 30, like they're throwing in more sets. And they go from like 3 sets to 5. They go from like 1 workout a day to 2 workouts a day. And they're doing just like tons of reps, tons of volume. And I would say that is one of the worst ways you could do it, because what happens is you create a lot of metabolic stress. So think about when you're training, when you're breaking the body down, the way that you actually want to do it is you want to almost have like a minimum effective dose approach, where most people do the opposite. They go maximum ineffective dose. And so they're just doing tons of reps, tons of sets, but it's all like fluff. It's a lot of just junk volume. So what I mean by junk volume is they're not like you might see in my stories. Like I'll give you an example. On a push day, when I'm doing like an incline chest press, as I'm dieting down right now and getting leaner, I can on the hammer strength incline chest press, I can do 4 45s on each side. And I can have more weight than that. I could probably do 4 45s and a 10. And when I'm a little bit more calorie fueled, like when I'm in not as much of a deficit, I can probably do 7 or 8 reps with that weight. Right now, I'm doing about 4. So I do about 4. But that's the focus. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do the same weight as I would if I was eating more calories, even if it's less repetitions. So the key, guys, this is the key. You've got to learn how to retain strength. So if you are training and you're used to doing a 315-pound deadlift for 10 reps. But as you diet down, you feel like your strength starts to go down. You need to try and keep hold of that 315 as long as you can. Even if it's, say, like 3 or 4, 5 reps, even if you do less reps, try and hold strength. That's why you'll see me, like a lot of people will often comment. They'll say things like, how are you so strong being as lean as you are? Like when you diet down and you're lean, don't you lose a lot of strength? And in theory, yes, if you train like I said most people do. Whereas if you focus on, okay, I know that I can normally hit X amount for 7 or 8 reps, I'm going to try and hit it for 4 or 5. And you hold on to that as long as you can. See, I used to do the opposite. I used to do what everyone, like what I just said, where I would just throw in extra reps, extra sets, lots of volume, extra workouts. And what happens is it drives up your hunger hormones. So like all that extra volume, all that extra stress on your nervous system just makes you feel more hungry and you feel more fried. So your nervous system is more fried. You feel more hungry. And how difficult is it to get to your goal and sustain it when you're fighting like cravings and hunger and your energy is low? It's very difficult. And so what I typically will tell people, and I said this to Chris Daltrey, was I said, look, like with those trap bar deadlifts or with your overhead presses or with your dumbbell chest press or whatever it is, hold on to as much strength as you can. So when we were at 170 pounds with a little bit higher body fat, you might have been doing 80-pound dumbbells or whatever it is. Hold on to that for as long as you can and try not to let it go. Try and maintain that in some way, shape, or form. So I think that is a huge lever to pull to help retain muscle mass. Because if you can retain muscle, it's going to keep your metabolism more activated. See what happens, one of the frustrating things for people, and I'm just going to make this point and then I'll jump into a couple of questions here as well. One of the things that people will, I'm just trying to think of the way to sort of word this in a way that makes sense. One of the things that people will do is they'll think to themselves, I'm just going to keep dieting down. I'm just going to keep like cutting calories, and I'll keep. And then have you seen what people do where they then hit like a brick wall? They're like their body just seems to stop responding. How many of you guys have been in that place, right? Where you're doing a certain thing, and then your body just stops responding. Like you're like, man, I'm like doing all this working out. I cut the calories down, but I'm not really like going anywhere. Like what's happening? One of the things that you need to overcome is this concept called metabolic adaptation. And this is kind of one of those topics that like some people think it's like, some people thought it was like, not like woo-woo nonsense. But there is a degree of validity to this concept of metabolic adaptation, where basically what happens is as you increase your training, like, if you're doing 75 hard and you go from doing, 4 or 5 workouts a week to 7 to daily workouts 2 times a day. So you increase your volume and you decrease your calories, your body starts to catch on. Your body starts to go, like there is a pretty hard caloric deficit here. We need to start to down-regulate organ function and metabolism to make sure that we don't like die. So what will happen is that's a big reason why women, when they get too aggressive with their dieting, they lose their monthly cycle. Like I had a woman that came to me, recently, and she had lost her monthly cycle completely. And I could tell that it was just like she was just straining herself. She's just redlining her dieting. And so I got her to take almost like a bit of a dietary break. Like we increased the calories a little bit and we did a little bit of like a deload. And it was hard. Like I could see her like mentally struggling. She was like, no, but like, I'm going to get fat. Like, she just, obviously people get up in their head. One of the biggest things that people need to work through is the stuff going on between the freaking ears. Like your mental state is often the biggest barrier to your physical transformation. But she was able to let go of that and trust that I know what I'm doing. And now she got her cycle back again. And now she's going further with her body composition change. So what I'm saying is that the metabolism will go, we need to down-regulate hormone production. We need to down-regulate all kinds of functions to be a bit more economical with our energy. And so that's why you start to hit these walls. So a strategy that I use when it comes to losing 10 pounds of body fat quickly and keeping it off, is once you get to the goal, or when you get close to the goal, have like little periods of diet breaks where say every 12 weeks, you do like 1 week where you just basically increase your calories by 300 to 500, and you just go a bit easier with the training. You get a bit easier with the training. You still train, but you go a bit easier, and you just increase that and make sure it's healthy calories too. And that little diet break, that little bit of a sort of a metabolic bump, usually kind of resets your metabolism and sort of, for lack of a better term. And that's what then gets you to that next level. That's how you're able to keep it off. So like with me right now, I typically can run between 6 and 10% body fat. I can easily run at 10, like without really thinking. But part of it is because I insert these little dietary reset periods to make sure that I'm not just constantly straining my system. So let's answer a few questions. So Adam says, what exercises do you recommend for people wanting to focus more on cardio? I would just say, to be honest with you, I would say whatever you feel like you enjoy the most. See, one of the principles that I really try and anchor into is this idea that your likes and dislikes are in part kind of driven by your limbic system. So your limbic system is like this very subconscious lizard brain, ancestral part of our brain. And our limbic system is basically kind of so like if there's a food you like, or if there's like something you have an affinity for, like I'll give you an example. If you just look through your YouTube search history, you'll notice a pattern, you'll notice trends. In your YouTube search history, there will be like things that you obsess over. There'll be things that you like to watch often. So your limbic system has developed this like affinity for those things. Whereas there might be things that you have like an aversion to, or like you are not interested in at all. And so I know for me, like my limbic system is sort of drawn to personal development. It's drawn to entrepreneurship. It's drawn to health, fitness, bodybuilding, that type of stuff. But I'm not really interested in like crochet or tennis or, different things. Like I'm not like a tech guy. And so what I'm saying, the point I'm making here is that there will be things that you have a more natural affinity for. So I don't even think that the type of cardio matters as much as you just finding the thing that comes easiest to you. So for some people, it's going to be like walking with a weighted vest on. I mean, like for me, for example, I find this very easy. I'm on a little walking treadmill right now. Very often when I'm doing calls with students, I'll throw the vest on too. And I'll turn the treadmill up a bit. So I'm kind of walking quite fast. And that's sort of that low intensity cardio, right? There might be like people that like want to give their legs a break and they have a rowing machine. Maybe you want to smash the rowing machine, right? Maybe you have one of those ski ergs, so ski erg, rowing machine. Maybe you like the step mill. Maybe you're a female and you want to work more on the glutes and the legs. And so you want to do those big double strides on the step mill, right? Maybe some people hate the step mill. So it's, it's not going to be very sustainable for you. The same thing is true for like if you wanted to add in some high intensity interval training, so like you might find that some people really love like kettlebell swings, other people like jump rope. So I would say and this principle relates to like a lot of things, guys. Don't feel like you have to force yourself to do like one thing because some guru says that. Think to yourself, if I toss a coin right now and you had to pick a piece of cardio while the coin's in the air and you just had to pick something that comes to your head first, like what would it be? Aim and focus on that more. And what I typically do is I would say like a combination of like some low intensity stuff. So like it could be like rocking with a vest on. It could be like doing, some sort of moderate intensity stuff on a bike. And then I think like adding in a little bit of high intensity stuff is very useful too, because then that really helps with that visceral fat burning. It gives a different effect in the body. Very often what you'll find, and this is what I've noticed over the years, guys, I'm curious if you guys have noticed this, is when you get the heart rate up, like when you do some high intensity stuff where the heart rate's elevated and you're like really sucking the air in, you almost feel like a bit of a euphoria afterwards. It doesn't feel good in the moment, most of the time. Most of the time it does not feel good in the moment. But usually after, you definitely notice, like, if you pay attention, you'll definitely notice like this sort of elevation in energy, this elevation in state, right? So, I mean, it's something that I think a little bit of burst of high intensity stuff, 2 or 3 times a week for 6 to 10 minutes can be really useful. Let's see here. Good questions, guys. Amy says, how many active heavy lifting days versus rest days do you recommend? Yeah, so basically how many days should you train? How many days should you do active rest? Does yoga or Pilates count as a rest day? So I would say, Amy, like knowing sort of where you're at, I would say like, if you're going to, unless you were doing like some really intense like power yoga that's like full on, I would say most yoga and Pilates is more restorative. It definitely is like slows the breathing down. It's more of a sympathetic nervous system type thing. I tell people usually, like if you're 20 to 30 years old, you could probably train like 6 or 7 days a week if you wanted. Now, you'd have to have things dialed in. Like you're not going to be able to like drink and stay up all night partying and eating McDonald's and expect to recover from 6 days a week of training. But if you had everything else dialed in, you could get away with 6 days. I do 6 days right now. And in fact, I do something every day, but I undulate it. So I'm not doing like max effort, balls to the wall, like just soul destroying weight training every day. I'll usually do like some hard weight training sessions, probably 4 times a week. And then 2 sessions are kind of moderate. And then 1 session is more like a strategic deload, or I'm sort of working on like rehab movements and things like that. But the rule of thumb, guys, typically is that 20 to 30, you could probably do 5 or 6 days of weight training a week and just keep your step count elevated and do active rest on the other days. As you age, like 40 plus, especially if like for women too, and especially if like fertility is important, you don't want to overdo it. Like you don't want to be doing 5 or 6 days a week of like gut busting, hard weight training. Especially you don't want to be doing like a ton of like high intensity, like CrossFit style training, like day after day after day after day after day. That's actually why so as you get older, you need to become more intentional with like that minimum effective dose principle. It kind of ties back to what I was saying before, guys, of like most people, they'll just throw more volume at the problem. I'm not adding like a lot more extra sets or even extra reps, but I'm trying to maintain as much strength as I can. So I'm trying to keep hitting the same weights, even if I'm getting a slightly few less reps. One of the things that I find really useful when it comes to maintaining muscle mass and getting leaner and keeping it is definitely making sure, and I've talked to you guys about this before, is definitely keeping your step count nice and high. Like if you can keep your step count at 15 to 20,000 steps per day and you're weight training 4 to 5 times a week, like you will probably get better results with your fat loss than someone who's training 6 days hard and then they're just sitting in front of their desk and computer all day. Because the walking is almost like a recovery thing. It's like a recovery tool. Think of walking as like this sort of active recovery. You're helping your circulatory system. Again, Josh, stroke stuff, blood flow. You want to do things that help pump your circulatory system, your lymphatic system. So it's going to be things like this slow intensity plodding along like this. This helps with digestion as well. A lot of people have digestive problems, right? Good questions, guys. I love this stuff. Greg says, how many reps and sets would you recommend for each body part? This is a good question because this is quite a highly contentious sort of topic, actually. They've done a lot of research on this to try and figure out, okay, per week, what is the ideal amount of sets, like the ideal amount of volume you should be doing per muscle group per week, right? And it actually seems to vary quite a lot. So what I would say is a general rule of thumb, I would say anywhere between about 6, and this is a reasonably wide range, but anywhere between like 6 and 20 sets per body part per week. And when I say 6 to 20, I'm meaning like if you do like if you do 2 chest workouts a week, right? If you do one like chest workout on Monday and then another one on Thursday or whatever, and you are doing like 2 or 3 sets of like flies, and you do that on both days, that's like 4 to 6 sets of flies. And then you do 2 or 3 sets of like incline press, that's like another 6 sets. So that's 12 sets right there. Can you see how quickly the volume adds up? So when I say like 6 to 20 sets, don't think, oh, Jesus, 20 sets. I'm talking about like total volume. So that includes incline presses, flat presses, dips, chest flies. So think about that. Like you could easily overdo it. And that is what most people do. Most people overdo it. They just like, it's like they're just like, oh man, it's like they get they boil the potato and they're like, well, if boiling it for 10 minutes made it nice and soft, I'm going to boil that damn thing for 10 hours, and they just basically just torch themselves with volume. And I was guilty of this. Now, I would say the caveat with that is that when you're younger, if you're sleeping really well, if you're eating a lot of calories and they're clean, you can handle more volume. As you age, your volume does want to come down. Like for me now, and I'll also tell you this is a good thing to know. It's a lot less volume to maintain your result than it is to get the result. Isn't that good to know? Like I can, like the physique I have right. If you go and look at my like Instagram or Facebook right now, and you look at like my physique right now, I can maintain that physique with like half the volume that I probably had to use to get there in the first place, as long as I maintain strength. So what I would say, general rule of thumb is like, I would say if like you're a beginner to intermediate, I would say probably like 12 to 16 sets per week, per muscle group. And yes, remembering that's not per exercise. That's like through every single exercise for that muscle group. And then I would say the rep range, guys, is usually going to be anywhere between like 5 and 15. Sometimes I even say like 8 to 15, but I think for a lot of people, 5 to 15 is a good range. One of the cool things to realize, like one of the myths that was circulating for the longest time was, does 1 to 5 reps, is that for powerlifting? And then, 8 to 15 is for muscle building. And then 15 to 30 is for fat loss and toning. Oh, yeah, toning. That word makes me cringe. None of that's true. One of the things to realize is that your body can build muscle anywhere from like 3 reps through to 30. But at each end of that spectrum, there's going to be a trade-off. So when you're doing 3 reps, that's pretty goddamn heavy. Like you're going to have to move some heavy ass weight to create enough overload at 3 reps to see like a positive result. And so for that reason, your chance of injury is quite high because you're doing like 3 rep max almost stuff. Equally down the other end of the spectrum, when you're doing like 30 reps, that's a lot of stress on your nervous system. It's a lot of volume. It's a lot of wear and tear. Imagine like you just get in your truck or you get in your car and you're just like driving around, just clocking up miles on the engine. You're clocking up miles on that engine, right? That's like you just pumping out reps of sets of 30. You're going to get a lot of just like central nervous system fatigue. And that's equally not ideal. So high injury risk, high central nervous system fatigue. So where do we want to sit? We want to be like 5 to 15. And usually what I do, little pro tip for you guys, this kind of ties back into the 10 pounds of fat loss and keep it off. What I do, especially right now, is I front load my set. I do what's called a, I've even forgotten the term that I was using, but I basically front load the set with like a heavier, an exposure set. I just came up with that term. It sounds cool. Basically, you're exposing yourself to the heavier weight. You're like inoculating yourself to that heavier load of like 3 to 5 reps, probably 5 reps, I would say, for most people. And then you're drop setting down to that normal weight that you'd normally use. So for me, for example, let's say I'm going to do like an incline chest press, right? I would do like 10 to 15 reps with the 345s on each side. I do 10 to 15. Now, I don't just want to do that. What I do is I put 445s on each side. I push out like 4 or 5 reps with that, and then I rip a 45 off each side, and then I try and do my 10 to 15 with those 345s. So what I'm saying is like, look at your workout right now, and especially if the sets are like, 10 to 15 reps, and front load that set with a heavier exposure set of like 4 to 5 reps. 5 reps heavier, drop the weight back down to what you would normally do, and then pump out your normal set. Now, you might not get quite as many reps because you're already a little bit fatigued from that exposure set. But think of it a bit like you're inoculating yourself to that weight. You're exposing yourself to that weight that retains strength. When you retain strength, your body sends a signal to your brain. Like we actually need this strength because we're using the strength. Like your body is a very smart thing. And if you go from like lifting heavier to lifting like a little snowflake, your body's going to be like, well, we don't need all that strength anymore. Let's down regulate. Let's use a bit of this muscle mass as energy, because muscle mass is not very metabolically friendly. Like it's very consuming. It takes up a lot of energy. So the body's going to down regulate that. So you're not having to find as many calories to survive. So you've got to remember, exposure sets at the front of your sets, guys, to maintain strength. And this applies to men, women. I've got students in the 60s and 70s that I will get them to use this principle. But I'll get them to either use machines or cables. Like I'll never get like someone in their 60s or 70s to do like a heavy freaking deadlift or back squat. I'll get them to do a heavier like machine press or a heavier like cable, like if they've got like a tonal at home and they've got like the bar and they can do like a cable squat, I'll get them to do like 5 reps. That's challenging for them. It's not so bad that it's going to kill them, but it's like heavy enough that it challenges them. So cables and machines, guys, those are the things that you can go heavier on. That's why you'll often see in my stories. And I would encourage you guys, like, follow my stories every day. I post my stuff every day. You'll see that I use a lot of machines now because machines allow me to get very close to mechanical failure much more safely. That's the whole reason I use them. Yeah, Ryan says, I like that. Our limbic system is our own internal algorithm. Yes. So you need to think about things you have a natural affinity for and figure out how you can kind of stack habits into those things. Like an example is like if you are not very good at like meal prep, for example, but you like have this affinity, you just love watching like Netflix, or you love watching a certain series on like Amazon, like Prime or whatever. What I would say is like pick up that show on Amazon Prime and like put it on your computer, sit your computer like on the kitchen bench and watch that show like while you're doing some meal prep. So you're now taking something that doesn't really come naturally to you and you're like stacking it onto something your limbic system has an affinity for. When you do that, you're essentially like hacking your own software. Like you have a software system operating under the surface. And that's why you struggle to do certain things and why you find it easier to do other things. Like for me, for example, it's not hard for me to work and just like be working all day. Some people are like, oh, I'm just really, struggling to like get the work done. I just don't feel like I'm very disciplined. I just want to watch movies. But for me, my limbic system does not have an attachment to watching movies. I actually enjoy working. To me, that's not difficult. What's difficult is to stop. So like it's the same thing for me, like with eating healthy. Limbic system has developed an attachment to like feeling high energy, like feeling good. I hate feeling like dog shit, man. Like I spent years feeling like trash, so shit. And I see a lot of guys and a lot of people struggle with that. And I'm like, God damn, like I want to grab them and shake them. Because like I know how hard it can be, and so like the way I've been able to kind of anchor my limbic system to like having an affinity for eating healthy is because I have that affinity for feeling like high energy. Like I want to feel really good. And so I've been able to somehow stack on that healthy eating habit on top of that software. And it's the same thing for like working out. One of the things that I have done when it comes to working out is I recognize that, like in many ways, I'm a walking billboard for like my coaching. And so if I'm a fat personal trainer and I'm out of shape, or I look like an average Joe, that's not very motivating for people to see. I know that in order for me to be more successful at what I do, I need to be an absolute walking billboard. And so what I've done is I have this like motivation to grow our business, like for all these different reasons, like financial freedom, all the stuff that a lot of us value here, right? So I've stacked on doing the workouts over and over again on top of that idea of financial freedom, which my limbic system is very, very drawn to. So you need to be thinking, that's why I tell entrepreneurs all the time, I'm like, look, like you want to make more money, you want to have like more of a positive effect when it comes to communicating and persuasion with people, positive persuasion with people that you meet, like get in better shape, get in really good shape. It will serve you. And so when you then stack the workouts and you stack all of those things on top of that desire to create more financial freedom and more traction in your business, which your limbic system is drawn to, then it becomes easier to stack things on top of that. So I wanted to mention that because in order to keep the weight off, you're going to have to think about things that you have an affinity for, and you're going to have to hack your software. I'll give you a good example. So someone said to that guy, David Goggins, one time, they said to him, like, you said you stretch for like 5 hours a weekend. Oh, who stretches for 5 hours in the weekend? And he's like, well, I love watching football. And I'll watch a game on Friday night, and I'll watch a game on Saturday night, and I'll watch a game on Sunday. And while I'm watching the game, I'll lay on the floor and I'll stretch the whole time. And I'm like, his affinity is watching football. That's what his limbic system is drawn to. And he knows that stretching is good for his recovery so he can keep training. So he stacks it on top. So again, like I said, I have an affinity for like working and social media and doing videos like this with you guys. So I'm stacking the treadmill on top of the thing that I'm drawn to. So rather than me just sitting here for 3 hours and just talking to you guys in a chair and not moving, I'm already at like 4,000 steps, and I'm just plodding along like a snail. So I know I have the thing that I'm drawn to, and I'm like, what is the action or habit that I know will get me to the goal? I stack it on top. Think about that, guys. Think about what are you naturally drawn to, and how can you stack a habit on top of that? That's how you hack your freaking software. That's how I've been able to create like the person that I am today. It's phenomenal. When you understand that you are just like an algorithm with emotions, you can start like stacking in and really fine-tuning stuff. Todd says, is this the refeed idea? So refeeds, quickly. Yes, kind of. So like what Todd's referring to with the refeed is that idea that I was talking about a bit earlier when I was talking about having like a few days or a week where you do a little bit of a calorie increase, right? Like if you're feeling like you're hitting a wall, what I would do is if you wanted to lose 10 pounds, guys, in the next 4 weeks, I wouldn't do any cheat meals or any refeeds for at least 4 weeks. And then try and push as hard as you can. And I'm curious, I could even verbally walk you guys through exactly like what to do. So like, you know, I would be like training X amount of times a week. I'd be hitting, 20,000 steps every day. I'd be getting a standing disc and a treadmill. After 4 weeks, that's when I would do a refeed meal. And so so Todd, refeed meal. Yeah. So a refeed meal, guys, is basically just like it's like a free meal. I always tell people also longer term, it's cool to do like health, refeed meals in your routine as like a little bit of a diet break, because if you're just eating the same thing over and over again and you're getting some good results and you feel good, sometimes you might be like, you know what, like there's a certain food that I really enjoy. Can I find like a healthier version of that food? So that I'm very big on that. One of the things that I really try and shy away from, and I'll tell you guys, you got to shy away from this, especially as you age, is if you are into just like cheat meals that are really like bad for you. Now, some people will say, like, don't be such a purist. Like, you've got to let people have some balance and this and that and the other. And I'm like, yeah, but like, if you're like, as you get older, you do develop more of a sensitivity to like having problems. So you will become more insulin resistant. You will have way more of a chance of like heart attack or stroke if you keep eating Domino's pizza. Like your chance of getting different cancers increases. Your chances of having autoimmune diseases. Like your digestion's even more sensitive. I mean, you think some of you guys will know what I'm saying here is like, if you think back to when you were in your teens or 20, you're probably eating all sorts of random stuff. And you notice that maybe your digestion was never that bad. Yet as you've aged, that it seems to have got worse. It's because as you age, typically your body does develop more sensitivities to things. And I don't think it's because you're becoming more sensitive. I just think it's because your body's like wearing down more. Like for a while, you're riding this like wave of youth where your body's young enough, you have enough like growth hormone and sort of mitochondrial function in your body to handle the trash. And as you age, growth hormone decreases. As you age, mitochondrial function decreases. Mitochondria are basically like, think of like each cell as if it's got like a little battery in the cell that charges the cell. That's the mitochondria. And as we age, those mitochondria, the battery loses its charge. And that's what basically creates a sort of cellular breakdown, aging. So you develop less of a tolerance to shitty food. And so what I found is that I try to find healthy versions of things that I used to love doing. You know, a really good one is like, instead of doing ice cream, go to YouTube right now and search protein ice cream recipe. And so it's an easy one. All you do is get some ripe bananas, you freeze them, you get like I would use like the Orgain, the chocolate Orgain protein powder, and you chop up some of those frozen bananas, one or two, put it in a high-powered blender, add the protein powder, pour a little bit of water in there, and blend. And it's like chocolate soft serve ice cream. And so rather than having like Ben and Jerry's, which is like 1,000 calories and just going to make you feel so much worse, you have something that's like soft serve chocolate ice cream, like 1/4 of the calories, but it's actually pretty healthy for you too. So that's the way you keep this off. Like, to keep it off, guys, you have to start finding healthier upgrades for the things that you do that you know are not making you feel good. And that's so what I would do, you know, a little bit of homework, is go to ChatGPT or just go to Google, one of the two, and type in like healthy recipes for macaroni and cheese, healthy recipes for spaghetti bolognese, healthy lasagna recipe, right? And it will either spit you out a nice recipe or you'll pull one up as a blog on Google. And try that. Try doing that instead of the stock standard trash. Because I tell you, as you age, you need to become a lot more intentional about that stuff. Adam says, thanks. Currently for my morning workout, I'm doing 50 push-ups, 4-mile power walk at 4 miles an hour at a 6% incline, 50 push-ups, 100 squats 5 times a week. I do jiu-jitsu 2 to 3 times a week. Just curious if you think it's good. So, dude, I would say typically with something like that, I would do less body weight stuff and add a little bit of resistance-based stuff. So let's say if you're doing 50 push-ups, one could argue that's like 5 sets of, obviously you're going to be doing more than 10 at a time. But I would say I would take 50 reps of something, and I would do like, weight sets. So I would do like, two sets of like 10 on like an incline dumbbell chest press, 2 sets of 10 on like on a dumbbell or cable fly. Because what I found for a lot of people is that body weight training doesn't really yield like maximal body composition change. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, you can add some of that in as a finisher if you wanted, but I find that to accelerate the body composition more alongside the jiu-jitsu, take the body weight stuff and turn it into some type of weighted thing. So instead of doing 100 squats, I would still do squats, but I would add weight. I'm telling you now, like I did that with one of my students, TJ White. He's a former Army Ranger, and he was kind of doing that. So he was doing a lot of body weight stuff with jiu-jitsu, and I basically got him to like reduce down his volume. Like, he was doing less sets, less reps, but he added more weight in, like weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, and his body composition changed dramatically. He's like, holy crap, dude. I can't believe like how much it changed. And I'm doing less. And I'm like, there you go. There you go, man. It's all about the ROI of an exercise. If you guys go to my page, you'll see I talk about the ROI of an exercise. Like, meaning the return on investment. Some things will offer a bigger bang for you, but they'll offer a bigger return than other things. Like I would, like if I had to do like one exercise and that was it, it would be like dumbbell burpees. I would literally just do dumbbell burpees with a push-up. So like a push-up dumbbell burpee, because you're activating as many muscle groups in your body as possible. And you're getting a bit of a high intensity effect, bit of a metabolic effect, and you're getting like a systemic muscle building effect. So you could literally take what you're doing and add dumbbell burpees in instead of doing the bodyweight stuff, and you would see a really positive trajectory change. Jake, hey buddy. So Jake says, how do you deal with injuries when you're on your fitness journey? This is a good one because we all deal with these. I've tweaked my neck and back several weeks ago and noticed it was affecting my strength. So I took a break from lifting and dieting to try and give my body to recover. Yeah. So Jake, what I would say is, yeah, injuries are tough. Injuries are a tough one. I mean, I strained my quad about a month ago, and it was pretty bad, man. Like I was like, damn, I couldn't squat at all for like 2 weeks, at all. Like I couldn't even get past parallel with my squat. I was like, God. So what I did, and I've had a few injuries, but nothing like massive. But I'm usually very proactive about it. So what I would do, guys, and what I would suggest to all of you guys, because you're gonna face these at points in your journey. You're gonna have periods where you get injured. I would be like putting ice on it first. I find just putting. Some people will argue ice is not good. You just need to put heat on it. Some people say heat's good. No, some people are going against. I'll just tell you what I do. So usually right after I train, I'll put a bit of ice on the area, and then I put a lot of heat on it. So I just keep the heat pack coming. So I just keep putting the heat pack on it for as long as I can. Basically, and you notice when you put a heat pack on something, it goes red. It's because all that blood is being pulled into that area. And with that blood, it's going to bring oxygen nutrition. That's the key. So I usually will put a lot of heat on it. I'll usually make sure that I'm trying to move those muscles through their full range of motion, like stretching. So I would practice like doing body weight squats down as far as I could go without like it hurting. And I just kept doing that like nice and gentle, moving the muscle through like a full range of motion to really just try and get everything activated. And I found that helped too. In your case, man, I would definitely say if it persists, go see a chiropractor. I think if you can find a good chiropractor, they're really, really useful for like neck and back. Really useful. Chiropractors get a bad rap, but I feel like some really good ones out there, because sometimes, man, it could be something structural and it could create a little bit of an impingement, and one little adjustment could get you right. So I do think if it persists, definitely don't avoid going to get like some type of like specialist help, because it could be quite an easy fix. One thing, guys, we're going to take I think like a 6-minute break at 2:10. So I'm going to go use the bathroom, going to go grab a drink. So at about 2:10, we're going to take a little break. There's going to be this little video that will play for you guys with some of like some students talking about their journey and stuff. So if you want to hang around, listen to that, and then I'm going to be back. So hang around, just hang around. We're going to walk through all these questions. I'm going to keep tying in principles around the 10 pounds of body fat, keeping it off, that type of thing. Remember, because this stuff will relate to that. Like, you're not going to be able to get 10 pounds of body fat off and keep it off if you're getting injured all the time and you're not recovering well. It's not going to happen. So whenever I share anything with you guys here, always relate it back to, okay, he's talking about injuries or he's talking about blood flow or whatever, but it's going to relate to this journey at some point, because I'm going to have to make sure my recovery and my blood flow are good. I'm going to have to make sure my recovery from injuries is good, right? Another thing that I would say is very important for you to focus on is the quality of your diet. This is a big one that most people neglect. So they'll be training really hard, they'll get injured, and then their diet goes out the window. And all that happens is you go from eating a really nutrient-rich diet that's got a lot of anti-inflammatory compounds in it, low in inflammation, low in inflammatory stuff. And if you start eating poorly, you're basically just pouring gasoline on the fire. So you're adding in a lot of things that are inflammatory. What is an injury? An injury is a form of inflammation. So you're slowing down the recovery process when you eat poorly. That's why I tell people, when you get sick or when you get an injury or when you've had a surgery, you really want to double down on the purity, the quality of your diet. I know it's hard. It's not easy. Like, if it was easy, everyone would be in great shape. The reason that they're not is because it's not easy, but it is worth it. I'm telling you, like, when I go through like challenges, when I'm not feeling well or I get injured, I really make sure that I focus on nutrient quality, whole foods, rich in antioxidants, finding healthier alternatives for those processed inflammatory things, because that's going to age you faster. You're going to age quicker. It's going to slow down your recovery. You're going to wake up with aches and pains. I mean, people that get arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune disease caused from inflammation. Inflammation caused from the diet, right? So really, really important. And the last thing that I'd say, just to kind of wrap up this 2 minutes before we go into this little interlude, is peptides. So peptides is one of those areas that, again, do your own research. They get a bad rep by some people, and some people have no idea what they are. Peptides are basically like a blueprint in the body. And so it's like a little chain of amino acids that you have to take either via injection or capsule, and it basically turns on a piece of machinery in your body. Like, most people don't realize that insulin is a peptide. Insulin was like the first peptide that they synthesized, and it saved type 1 diabetics' lives. Type 1 diabetics can't produce insulin. And so they will literally go into a diabetic coma if they do not have insulin. So insulin's a peptide. There are healing peptides like BPC 157, TB 500, GHK copper, and probably like thymosin alpha 1. So I've run all of these different ones. BPC 157 is like a localized peptide. So if you have an elbow injury, you're trying to administer it close to like the joint. TB 500 is like a systemic one. So you could take it anywhere and it's going to work everywhere. Again, pros and cons to this. We can talk about that after this little interlude. But I just wanted to mention that because, guys, you're going to find that you will get injured at times. So what I'll do is there's some awesome questions in here. We've still got some good stuff to come in. So we're going to take a little break in a second, and then I'll be back for another hour, and then we'll have one last little break. So what I would tell you guys is, like, go on about your day. Like, put your headphones in, listen to me in the background. If you want to jump in and ask a question, jump in. Otherwise, just kind of listen, like go for a walk, like get some stuff done on your computer, do some meal prep, like do other things. Have your headphones in, listen and take in what I'm saying. Because like this stuff, guys, this is the stuff that's going to get you to that next level. I promise you that. All right. So Jordan, did you want to chop now if you're around? Otherwise, I can just keep talking and it might just pull me off abruptly.
Guys, stop doing what I did for so many years. Coming up with excuses as to why I can't join the Superhuman Upgrade. I finally made that decision in December of last year, 2023. And let me tell you, the results that I have achieved from then until now surpasses anything I ever did prior to. For years, I spent money, time, energy in gyms on equipment, supplements, workouts, protocols, denying myself food. Never achieved anything close to my desired result until this program. It's smart and effective. Do it for yourself. Do it for your spouse or partner. Do it for your children, your family, and your community. Level up, take a stand, and become that 2.0 version of yourself that you know is in there. Your result is one decision away. Make it today.
This is where he began. Most people in their 40s and 50s and 60s think they're over the hill. It's too late for them. And this is what happened when he got the right blueprint. Anything is possible. You collapse the time horizon to your goal. You see, most people spend a lot of time guessing, a lot of time trying new things and quitting. Compress that time horizon.
Hey, what's up everyone? Justin Stark here, and I've been training under Fraser Bayley for several months now, since around December, and blood work panel's been done, perfect numbers. You can ask Fraser about it. He ran everything for me. He dialed me in faster than I thought I could as far as energy levels go. To give you some context, I have 3 businesses. I run a real estate company where we do fix and flips. We just opened an insurance agency where we do all things health insurance and retirement. And then my wife has a women's clothing boutique. And then on top of that, I have a special needs son. So we were very, very, very busy. And now I'm like, how do I take care of my health? Well, Fraser Bayley will dial you in. I'm telling you, get in the superhuman upgrade. You got to do it.
And here are some of my other guys. I've got women. There are tons of people, high level CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs, you name it, all using the superhuman concepts to level up. Fathers, husbands, mothers, you name it. Get on it with it.
Hey guys, so I love the Superhuman Upgrade, and the Q&A sessions we do every weekend are phenomenal. They really help me in being able to understand some of the little nuances of what I'm trying to do with my diet, and even asking questions about my blood work. It's been a real help to be able to ask somebody like Fraser, who has years, maybe even decades of experience in researching and knowing all these different ways that different people's body types respond to things, answer my questions directly. And that's what I love about the Superhuman Upgrade.
Fraser's program, the Superhuman Upgrade, is amazing for so many reasons, but the biggest one for me is just how much it's actually changed my life in so many different facets. Not only am I more abundant, more fit, more happy, but I'm also just more confident in myself as a person. I'm also much more knowledgeable because Fraser himself is a wealth of knowledge. If you ask him a question about health or kind of anything, he has the answer to it. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And Fraser also just actually cares about your progress. He practices what he preaches, and he's just honestly one of the coolest dudes I've ever met. And I cannot express to anybody how happy I am that I decided to invest in myself and hire him as my coach.
I'm Todd Deskin. I've been fully committed to the Superhuman Upgrade for the last 2 weeks. I'm down 6 pounds, and I'm starting to get excited to go to the gym every morning. The thing I like most about the program is how easy the nutrition aspect's made. There's interchangeable power bowls, and Fraser explains that when you're craving something like ice cream or chocolate, you're most likely missing some other phyto-micronutrients, and that's able to be replaced with a healthier option. So if you're going to commit 100%.
And this is my guy, Jordan Solomon. Massive weight loss. Remember, your face tells a story. It's a window into your habits, whether you share them publicly or not. So he also got on my Superhuman Upgrade, and at 40 years old is in the shape of his life and full alignment with his brand, because now he has all of it. He has the health, the wealth, all of it. Get in alignment.
Hey there, my name is Vito Galati from St. Louis, Missouri, and if you're watching this video, you've likely clicked on a link to learn more about Fraser Bayley's Superhuman Upgrade course. I can tell you from firsthand experience, as one of Fraser's one-on-one clients, the knowledge that you will learn by going through this course is second to none. Fraser and his knowledge is unmatched in this industry, and the care and the environment that he curates for his students is top-notch. You owe it to yourself to make this investment, because if nothing changes, then nothing changes. So be the example for your family, be the example for your friends, your colleagues, everyone that you love. Make this investment and show everybody what's possible. Fraser is an awesome mentor, an amazing friend, and one kick-ass Kiwi.
This is what 100 pounds of fat loss looks like. This is my student, Courtney. She's absolutely amazing. Mother, a wife, had struggled with polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, various hormonal challenges, and this is her result so far. That's literally where she's at right now. That's where she was. This is where she's at right now. Look at the difference. That circumference of the waist. You can see the fading of it. That's profound. No calorie counting. Using blood work. Using my intuitive eating processes. Superhuman. Boom. If you want to do this too,
all right, guys. So we are back. Bathroom break. Fully hydrated. I tell you, little pro tip for you guys. One of my guys in my superhuman Spartan coaching said, he's like, man, I've been, I'm training and I keep hitting like a wall through my workout. You hit this point where you just burn out completely, right? And I said, one of the things that I notice with people when they hit that wall, if they hit it often, they're usually running dehydrated. So if you want to reduce cravings, reduce the chance of getting migraines and headaches, you want to increase your energy and stop hitting that wall when you train, increase your water intake, but also increase your mineral intake in your water. I'm telling you guys, it's a key thing. So just a little side note for you guys. I always think that long-term change is more than just calories. It's more than just like a diet. Because if you eat really well, but you're chronically dehydrated, what's the point? You're going to struggle. You're going to feel like shit. That's not how we want to roll, right? We don't want to roll like that. So, guys, I'd love for you to keep dropping your questions in. Like I mentioned in the first session, the sort of the overarching principle is, I want to lose 10 pounds of body fat quickly and keep it off. What do I do? So let's just kind of revisit some of that stuff real quick, and then I'm going to jump into more questions that you guys have got. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, because obviously it's as busy as I am, taking 3 hours out of my day is quite a chunk. But I honestly think to myself, what's going to help people the most? Because I know that when I share what I do and share my knowledge, and then I see you guys go away and do it, and then I get your messages, and I see you tagging me in your posts, that lights me up, man. I live for that. I love that stuff. When me and Jordan Solomon first started doing this superhuman school stuff together, one of the things that I think we both resonated with was this idea of it's not just about making money, man. It's not. Financial freedom is absolutely the goal. You guys want to create massive financial freedom, and the health component is a conduit to that. You need to get yourself really healthy so you can perform at a higher level and sustain it. So you need to treat yourself like a business athlete. Your health is an ROI into your business, but it's also an ROI into your marriage, and it's an ROI into your parenthood. So think of it like that. But the point is that we both really resonated around this idea of just being able to help people, being able to see people change their lives. It is a fulfilling thing. Sounds corny, but it is fulfilling. I really do love that stuff. So guys, in terms of some of the stuff we touched on first, you want to make sure that you're falling within that 5 to 15 rep range, that you're front loading your set within a heavier exposure set. You're trying to maintain and retain as much strength as you can. If you start doing high volume shit, just a ton of body weight stuff, you won't retain as much muscle as if you try to keep that strength, even if you're in that 5 to 15 zone, 5 to 15 reps. If you're using a weight that's so heavy you can't get to 5, you need to lighten the load. But if you get past 15, you need to go heavier. That's how you kind of know. So that's the first thing. The second thing is keeping your step count up. You know, like I said to you guys, you've got to understand how your limbic system operates. Your limbic system being that unconscious, like, operating system that operates just under the surface of your awareness. It's the thing, like, you know, when you do stuff and you're like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I sabotaging myself? Why do I keep giving up? Part of it is because you don't understand that operating system well. You're like fighting it. It's like the elephant and the rider. The guy riding the elephant thinks he's in charge. Any moment that elephant could just go. Your unconscious mind is like that. So what I would suggest you do is look at your YouTube search history. Look at your like browser history. So look at your browser history. Look at your YouTube search history. Look at the tabs that you have open on your browser, and look at your spending habits. Those are like key things that will give you an indication around what your limbic system has like an affinity towards. Like, what is it drawn to? Then what you need to do is you need to think of creative ways to habit stack something on top of that attraction. So, like, you know, I use David Goggins as an example of like, he loves watching football. So he'll lay on the floor in his lounge and he'll stretch for freaking hours while he's watching football. I love watching YouTube interviews. So I'll have my computer pulled up while I'm making dinner. And obviously, like, I make dinner anyway. But that way I enjoy the dinner making process. Like, I'm not like, rushing. I just want to get fast food because I hate this shit. You know, none of that. Like, and I could do like a whole bunch of meal prep if I wanted. And I had that thing pulled up and I'm just kind of just chilling, watching it, enjoying it because I had that affinity for that thing. Same thing with, like, if you love working and you love being on your computer or whatever, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but get a standing disc and a treadmill and stack those steps on top of that affinity for you being on your computer. So if you can think of as many of these types of instances as possible, you can basically stack a habit that's doesn't feel like it comes naturally to you on top of something that's automated. The reason why you try and do something and then you just wear out and you run out of discipline is because you're trying to fight, like, swim upstream. You're trying to like insert a habit on top of an operating system that's going in the other direction. So really, really important, because if you do not do that, nothing that I tell you here today will stick. You have to do that. So really, really important. So let me know if that makes sense, guys. Other thing that I thought was worth noting was for the next 4 weeks, I would be focusing intently on like sticking to a healthy diet, and I wouldn't be doing any cheat meals or any refeeds for at least 4 weeks. Give yourself 4 weeks with no deviation. Now, sure, that requires a little bit of discipline, but then you can plan it. So in the 5th week, plan that fun refeed meal. Plan it ahead. Think about it. Pick a really fun recipe. Talk about it with your family. Like, plan it. Organize it. Make it a thing. And then that way you can look forward to that once you put in the work and you've like got some of the results. I mean, a good example for me is in 2 weeks, I'm heading out to Hollywood to do the music video with the musician Chris Daltrey. And we have this thing, like we did it with this last music video, where we'll stay really dialed in, like especially coming into the shoot. So we'll be eating real clean. We'll be hitting the sauna a bunch. We'll be doing a lot of stuff to just get really, really shredded. And then after it's all shot and all done, we'll have like a really fun refeed meal. It's usually going to be something healthier, but there's like, because I've been plant-based for 12 years, but there's a lot of healthy stuff in California, in Los Angeles, a ton of stuff. So what I do is I find healthier things that are like fun meals, and we'll plan something after, and I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be good. And so like that is like the way you sort of can like reward yourself, So I would say general rule of thumb, guys, and I talked to Jordan about this. I actually think before I jump into some more questions, I want to walk through with you what I talked to Jordan about the other day. Because Jordan he's in a position where he's lost about 65 pounds. So he went from being big, fat, moon-faced Jordan. Now he's like leaner, Greek God, progress mode Jordan, on the path to creating that like physique that he truly wants. But he's at the point now where we need to start getting a little bit more intentional with his calories and his macros and all the little details. So what I told him was, I said, look, Jim, I would say take some notes here. Take what I'm about to say right now, take some notes, because this is the key shit. So general rule of thumb, when you want to retain muscle, as you lean down, you need to be hitting about 1 gram per pound of body weight in protein. Now, some people are like, oh, you don't need a full gram, you can do less. I get it. But for most people, it's just a nice, easy one to remember. And that it's better to, I say, hit a little bit more and not need it than to go to like 0.6 or 0.8 grams per pound and deal with muscle loss because you were like under on your amino acid content. So what I would say is, like, let's say you're 200 pounds. I would be going for about 200 grams of protein. If you're pretty active or you're a bit more advanced with your training, I would probably push it up to like 220. So 200 to 220, 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing, if you want like an aggressive fat loss calorie intake, and I'm going to tell you how you can do this without having to track long term. So if you're thinking, oh God, he's got his calculator out, he's going to tell me about macros. You don't have to do that long term. I don't. I'll tell you how. So stay tuned. But what I would do is, they say 200 pounds body weight. If you multiply 200 by about 9. So what I would do is I would take your body weight in pounds and multiply it by about 9. That's going to give you what I would consider a pretty good calorie deficit for fat loss. Now, you might look at that number and be like, holy shit, that's low. You'd be surprised. Most people eat way too much food. They're not used to eating less. Most people think they can eat way more than their body actually needs. You have to like train yourself. And I'll talk about that in the third session, about how to train your psychology to not be such a glutton, because there are things that you can do, and you have to do it if you want to get to like 10% body fat and sustain it long term and not lose your mind in the process. How do I know? Because I've done it. I've achieved it. So I will share that with you. So what I would do is I'd take your weight in pounds and multiply it by about 9, right? Now, if you didn't want to be as aggressive, you could multiply it by 10. But I would say, if you want to be aggressive, if you want the 10 pounds of fat loss in the next like 4 to 6 weeks, multiply it by 9. So that's going to give you 1,800 calories. 1,800, right? Now, 200 grams of protein is about 800 calories. So what it means is 1,800 minus 800. So your total calorie intake minus your protein intake in calories. So that leaves us with about 1,000 calories left. Now, what I typically tell people to do here is just kind of backfill the rest of the calories with things that you have a natural affinity for. Remember, natural affinity for things. There's a theme here, guys. So what I would say is, if you're a bit more of like a carbohydrate person, add a little bit more sweet potato, add a little bit more jasmine rice, add a little bit more couscous or gold potato or something like that. If you are more of a fat person, add a little bit more avocado, right? So like, I would say like a mixture of both. but you want about a 500 calorie split. So 1,000 calories total. And I'm telling you now, if you hit 200 grams of protein and you split the other 1,000 calories between healthy whole food starchy carbohydrates and fibrous ones, like eat the rainbow, a lot of rainbow, and some whole food fats. I'm telling you now, if you train correctly, like we'll talk about, your body will start to shift. It will start to shift. Now, the bonus points to this is like with the Superhuman School, for example. And by the way, guys, if you're not in there, I would really encourage you to jump in there, because a lot of the simple principles, there's a battle plan in there. It's all in there for you guys to start with. But you guys have seen me talk about the macro bowls, right? Like eat the rainbow, because it's not just about calories. I talked to a lot of like, I get a lot of messages from fitness people, and they'll say things to me like, how do you maintain being that lean? It's really difficult. I can't do it. Like, how do you feel tired? Like, I've been having to use a lot of caffeine. I'm feeling tired all the time. You know, I feel like I'm looking good, but I don't feel good. What is going on, right? And this is the point that I want to make, is that you can lose the 10 pounds of body fat, but most people won't keep it off. And so one of the things that you need to do, is you need to be focusing on that rainbow principle. And obviously, like, it can be useful to get like a food sensitivity test done to make sure that you're not eating like healthy foods that are like giving you a negative reaction. You know, a good example is I've seen someone have a sensitivity to red bell peppers before. You know, it's like a healthy food. It's red, but they had a sensitivity to it, and they were getting like bloating and digestive issues from that. So my point is, like, outside of a food sensitivity test, what I would say is eat the rainbow. Where's your green veg? Where's your red? Where's your orange? Right? I mean, I'll add in, like, a good example is I'll add in like the beet sauerkraut. So not only am I getting the reds, nitric oxide production, but I'm getting a fermented food, which is good for the gut health and the gut microbiome. I'll add in another type of sauerkraut that I like. It's like a dill garlic one. I'll add in broccoli sprouts, living food. Broccoli sprouts are highly anti-cancerous. So I think of them as kind of like an insurance policy. I don't like the taste of them at all. They taste like shit. But I recognize that what's worse, me eating some broccoli sprouts that taste like shit, or me getting goddamn cancer? When you ask yourself that question, it seems insane when you have people be like, oh, but I just don't like that food. I'm picky. I'll shut the hell up, man. Like, well, do you want to truly change, or do you want to stay the same? Like, I get it's not always easy. It's not, but you have to learn how to remap the way you think about challenge. And then obviously, you know, microgreens. So you got like your power greens or your like 50-50 blend. So microgreens, power greens, that type of thing, really good. The microgreens, in my opinion, are like the best thing to get. So like in your area, if you search like microgreen farm in your area, there might be microgreen farms in your area. You can grow them if you want. But if you can find a microgreen farm, you could probably get a lot of them for like pretty cheap. And gram for gram, they're even more nutrient dense than their fully grown counterparts. So like gram for gram, broccoli microgreens have way more nutritional density than like a full head of broccoli. So why not go for that ROI? Remember that, the ROI of things. So that's one principle. The rainbow stuff, the colors, the micronutrients, as to how to optimize your energy. Because if your energy is low, if you're not feeling very good, you're going to want to just like take more caffeine. It's going to affect your sleep. When you're not sleeping well, you'll be more moody. You'll be craving more because your ghrelin hormones are going to be elevated. And so you'll want to snack more. Everything kind of comes undone, right? Like when you don't feel good. But the other component to that regarding like low energy, fatigue, that type of stuff is that central nervous system fatigue I talked about when you're overdoing it. 75 hard, guys, is a classic example. I love Andy Frisell. I think he's awesome. I think 75 hard is actually a very good concept. But most people don't do a good job of like taking the right diet and the right type of training and putting it into 75 hard. So what they do is they'll just pick any diet. It's probably not even a good one with like no micronutrients. It's just calories and macros. And they'll just be overtraining so much. So they don't periodize their training properly. Periodizing your training is essentially everything I've been talking about, like minimum effective dose, like doing like less sets, but like quality reps, really close to failure, like focusing on trying to maintain strength and not just constantly just destroying yourself. Like if you're doing like a hard weight training session in the morning, and then you're doing like some gut busting kettlebell swing session in the afternoon, it's going to really toast your nervous system and you'll feel really low energy. You'll just feel gassed. So you need to periodize your training more effectively. So that's really where I think like walking, like throwing the vest on, walking, some light yoga, Pilates, like Amy said at the start, that stuff in conjunction with some resistance training, really important, really important. Jake says, what are your thoughts on prolonged fasting, like 24 to 72 hours? So this is a good question. And in fact, Michael says intermittent fasting. My first meal is usually around 11, and I shoot for my last meal to be around 6:30 or 7. I typically only have 2 meals a day with a shake and healthy snacks. So he's basically sort of making a statement. But what I would say is I do think for most people, some type of fasting protocol is quite useful. You know, like if I was going to get, someone to like lose body fat as fast as possible, I would say, and I've mentioned this to Jordan, for example, and a couple of other people, is like on one of your rest days where you're not weight training, do like a 24-hour fast. What I would do though, it's like a bit of a pseudo fast. So what I would do is I would be using essential amino acids through the day. So one could argue that might affect insulin, but like I just think that's just like stepping over dollars for pennies. I think people are worrying, like majoring in minors. So what I would do is I'd take like 3 or 4 servings of essential amino acids. I'd be drinking plenty of water with minerals in it, essential amino acids, and I'd be just doing that. And I'd be like light walking like this, but I wouldn't be like weight training. And I would do that all the way through to the end of the day. Now, if you get to the end of the day and you're like, man, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like I could probably skip dinner and go all the way through till the next day. Do it. Give it a shot. And then that morning, let's say you train in the morning, I would take a serving of essential amino acids before you train and a serving while you train. And then I would have a nice clean meal post-workout after that training. So it might be like a 36-hour fast. So, but I do think that some type of fasting protocol is useful, guys. And it's going to vary for everyone, so like I find for me, I just I make my dinner meal earlier in the day. So if I can, I'll usually make my dinner meal at like between 4 and 5 p.m. and I'll have it around then, usually at 5. But I would have it earlier if I could. And in that way, like it's an even longer fasting period. Like I find that the earlier you have dinner, the better you sleep, typically. For most people. Like, some people will be like, I'm so hungry, it's going to make me not sleep well. You just got to allow your body to get through those initial hunger pangs. But what I found is that if you're eating late in the evening, right before bed, it definitely negatively impacts sleep scores, guys. It really does. I've got a student who his wife is from Argentina, and I believe it's like a cultural thing in Argentina where they eat late. So they have dinner at like 8:30, 9 p.m., which is pretty late, especially if you have like kids, And I see how it affects his sleep scores. And so people get in this challenge of like trying to make it like healthy, trying to time it so it's healthier for them while not necessarily sticking with, cultural norms if they're not that helpful for you long term. So I do think intermittent fasting can be useful. I would suggest to do it on a day where you're not weight training, but you're still walking. Adding in essential amino acids, I think, can be a good thing, especially to prevent muscle protein breakdown too much. Some people who are like big fasting advocates would say that you're not going to see any muscle loss, but I would say if you do it too much and you're training hard through the week, you might. So I would just use essential amino acids, kind of like an insurance policy. It basically is like a buffer. So essential amino acids is 0 calories, but it's what your body uses to basically make muscle. And so your body, you'll eat protein, and that protein will get broken down into essential amino acids. Your body then uses those essential amino acids to build like the building blocks for muscle. So really all you're doing is supplying it with the raw material that's like with no calories. So I use that as like a little bit of a hack. Amy says, thanks for the details on fertility. I appreciate it. Yeah. So Amy, like I was saying, I think for a lot of people, and I actually had a guy that I'm talking to right now who's he's trying to become more fertile as well. Like him and his partner want to conceive. And I'll tell you guys, like fertility is it's usually a sign of like health in general. Like, and it's a sign of like, I want to say like stress on the nervous system. There's obviously a lot of other things to that too. That's like a very general statement. But and the reason why I say this is because I think there's a number of guys on here right now, but many of you guys are going to have girlfriends or wives. And if they are at an age where they should be having a normal monthly cycle, but they're not, it's because there's so much stress on the nervous system. It's like the metabolism is down regulating, and that's shutting down that system. The same thing is true for guys. Like andropause is like a real thing where I've seen from stress, from poor sleep, from alcohol consumption, from like a crappy diet, how much it can tank testosterone values. So most guys who don't look after themselves will have really low testosterone. And what do you think happens? They go to the doctor and they're like, oh, doc, I don't feel good. My libido's low. I'm not sleeping well. My mood's low. And the doctor's like, well, you might have low testosterone. Let's go get your blood work done. And so they run this pretty inconclusive blood panel to start with. That I look at it and I'm like, this is some bullshit. How could they determine anything from this, first of all? And then the second thing is they'll just put them straight on testosterone replacement therapy. There's no probing like, what does your diet look like? Let's optimize your sleep first. Let's cut down your alcohol consumption. Let's try adding in certain vitamins and minerals like vitamin D, zinc, selenium, magnesium. All of these things, guys, omega-3s, all of these things help with the hormones that help produce testosterone. So if you were to look at those things and refine them, you might get your total numbers up completely fine, normal, without any interventions. And yet the medical system will pull you in and give you a medication and get you on a subscription for life. Now, I'm not against that. I think there's a time and place for it. You have to solve problems in the right order, though. Because if you don't, it's not going to be the panacea you think. It's not. I've seen guys come to me, white-collared business guys. They look like shit, and they're on testosterone replacement therapy. It's not like some magic bullet that's going to get you jacked. Trust me, it's not. I've seen there's a lot of people that through social media, guaranteed you know them, and they are not in shape, and they are on peptides and hormone replacement therapy and stem cells and exosomes and every other thing you can think of. I do think those things can have a time and place, but it's not going to be the panacea that people think. Like I would say in my own journey, that stuff equates to like 10 to 20% of the result. The other 80% is the training quality, sleep optimization, and the nutrient quality. Those things, man, those things are like massive levers, dude, massive levers. So again, it's why when I'm talking about the 10 pounds of fat loss, keeping it off, it's why I'll be focusing on those principles the most, not because I want to be like some purist, but it's because that's the stuff that actually works. By the way, I forgot to tell you guys when we were talking about the calorie tracking stuff, right? What I then do, and I mentioned this to Jordan as well. So what I then do is I'll get my metric measuring cups. So like my 1 cup, my 3/4 cup, my 1/2 cup, right? So I'll get my metric measuring cups. And for like 1 or 2 days, I'll track all my calories. So I make sure I'm getting the 200 grams of protein. I make sure I'm getting about 1,000 calories of like whole food fats and carbohydrates. And then what I'll do is as I'm weighing everything, I'll like take the cup measurements of it at the same time. And I'll write that down. So I'll say, okay, when I hit 1,800 calories, I needed X cups of brown rice, X cups of rainbow vegetables, 2 tablespoons of whole food fats, and that's for like meal 1. So then I know the next day when I go do my meals, I don't have to weigh and count stuff. I'm like, I look back at it, I'm like, okay, yesterday when I hit that 1,800, it was a 1/2 cup of, this, 1/2 cup of that, boom, boom, done. So long term, that's how you're able to get away from the calorie counting model. And then the coolest part, guys, is once you've been tracking with metric measuring cups for a while, you can actually get to a point where you can eyeball the portions. I eyeball stuff. Like, I mean, you see the result I have. I eyeball, but it's taken time to get there. But that's a beautiful thing. I'm telling you, you don't have to be tracking forever. Like, you can get past that. But it's all of these things that I'm talking about. So Josh says, what is the main difference in advice on diet and workouts you give for fat people, me, and people who are already in good shape just looking to get shredded? I would say, man, honestly, the principles are actually the same. That's one of the things that people kind of, I think, maybe misinterpret. And it's just another good example is like women often think they should train differently than men. Like, oh, like, should I be doing like sets of 30? And then the guys are like, oh, I'll be doing sets of 5. Like, no. Like, the principles are the same. Yeah, sure, like maybe the woman will prioritize her glute training and her hamstrings. The guy, she's not going to want to do lots of shrugs with her traps, right? But the rep schemes and the intensity principles are still the same. That's the same thing, dude, for you versus someone like me. The same principles apply. It's just that I've done them for a longer period of time and I don't miss at all. And you'll miss less the more you do it. So you'll get better at hitting the target. So that's the beautiful thing, guys, is that it doesn't change. So like you'll still want to hit like, your protein target. You'll still want to keep your step count, as high as you can. You'll still want to make sure you're drinking plenty of water. You'll still want to make sure that your sleep is getting dialed in. You'll still want to make sure that you're eating the rainbow. You'll still want to make sure that you're pushing yourself as hard as you can within your reps and sets. Even if the weight we use is dramatically different, your version of that hard set will be my version of that hard set with the different weights. So the beautiful thing is that just know that the things that you are doing now are literally the things that you can master for the rest of your life, brother. Like, it's not going to have to change. I mean, there's like, I would say there's like just minor things. Like the minor things would be like you discovering like what healthier versions of foods like you can use to replace the old stuff. Whereas with me at this point, I don't even need a healthier version really, because I'm just used to eating clean. So I don't need that. Whereas with someone who's sort of coming from a more standard American diet, they need a bit more like help with, here's the healthy alternatives for X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? A great example that I like to use is the brand based out of Australia called Macro Mike. Macro Mike. And they do high protein, healthy baking mixes. They're freaking phenomenal, man. They're so good. So I would tell you guys, if you have a family, kids, if you have a sweet tooth yourself, get you some Macro Mike baking mixes and just try them. There's like triple chocolate brownies. There's salted caramel cookies. There is like chocolate chip banana bread. There's chocolate chip pancakes, all sorts of stuff. Now, obviously, you can't just go completely batshit crazy on it. Like if you eat too much of that, you will spill over in calories. But doing that is way better for you than consuming the standard high fructose corn syrup, like peanut oil, inflammatory trash that you'd find in your local Kroger or Publix or something. So again, it's not just about calories. It's about the quality of those calories. So like one of the guys that, I don't know if you guys are familiar, there's a guy that's really blowing up on YouTube. His name is Sam Sulik. And he's a nice guy. I mean, he's a great guy. He's got good intentions. He's easy to watch. He's enjoyable to watch. He trains real hard, but his diet's absolutely terrible. Holy moly. Now, the reason why he's in such good shape, I mean, one could argue he's not healthy, but he's jacked. He's running a bunch of anabolic steroids. It's obvious. I can look at him and just be like, that guy's running all kinds of stuff, first of all. The second thing is he's just focusing on calories, protein, carbs, and fats. He's not focusing on the quality of the food. So you can get a good visual result. Like you can get abs and get jacked eating junk food if you're getting enough protein and if you're consuming them right around at total calories. But he's like in his early 20s. So at that age, he's not going to be suffering the ill effect of processed shitty food. So if he keeps doing that for like another 10 or 20 years, more than likely he'll get cancer, some form of cancer. He would definitely have like heart disease, like calcium buildup in his arterial system. He'd probably become very insulin resistant, like pre-diabetes. He would have a lot of elevation and inflammation markers in his body, like C-reactive protein. He might even develop autoimmune reactions, rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's or colitis, a range of things, thyroid dysfunction, all because all those chemicals and all that inflammation is just doing a number in your body. So the point I want to make is that it's really important to just make sure that if you're a beginner, like if you're a fat person, Josh, like, and great questions, by the way, too, brother. Like, that's where you really need to find healthy alternatives for things that you love. Like, straight out of the gate, cut the soft drinks and just do either Zevia soda waters or do stir-flavored mineral drops. Sorry, not mineral drops, stir-flavored water drops. Thank you. Stir-flavored water drops with sparkling water. So you can get, like, Mountain Valley sparkling water, soda water, and you can use stir-flavored water drops. Add that, and then you get like a flavored carbonated drink. No calories. No, like, super processed stuff. One of the other things that I just want to side note for you guys, like things like red dye 40. So if you look at a label of something and it says like red 40 or like blue something, steer clear of stuff like that. So like you'll see these in a lot of like these flavored water drops. Like there's one called like Mayo. There's some like kind of processed ones. You know, they've got like sucralose as a sweetener, and then they have like red dye, like red 40. Those dyes are like what's called excitotoxins. What do you think an excitotoxin does? It jacks up some of your neural chemistry. So ADHD, ADD is in part driven by a lot of processed sugars, but also excitotoxins like some of these dyes. So it's really important to remember, guys, that that's not calories, though. That's like a chemical food coloring. So I'm saying that you've got to be aware of these things. This is how you keep that weight off. Like if you just focus on like what most people focus on, you might lose the 10 pounds, but you will gain it back and some. And I do not want that for you guys. I do not. Todd says, I'm going to do this. I've been doing the opposite, lower weight at higher reps. Yeah, so basically what Todd is talking about is when he's trying to lose the weight, he's just increasing his rep count and he's moving like lighter weight. So he's, 30 rep sets. Same thing as like my guy TJ, the Army Ranger, lots of body weight stuff, tons of pull-ups, tons of push-ups. Add weight. Add weighted pull-ups, weighted dips. Add weight. That's and again, between 5 and 15, anywhere in that zone. I would be trying to get between, like, if you had to get even more specific than 5 or 15, I would say between like 10 and 12. 10 and 12, sweet spot. Eric, this is great info, but I've got an investment course trying to raise $2 million, but I can't. Dude, yeah. So Eric's basically just saying he's got to raise $2 million, but he realizes he won't be able to enjoy the fruit of that labor if he doesn't get healthy. And guys, that is the whole point of this. Like, obviously, I want to talk to you guys about tactics and numbers and strategy. But I'm going to talk. Are you guys familiar with the guy Kyle Mallion? Kyle Mallion does a lot of business acquisition stuff. So like he comes in, looks at like an existing business that's running profitable to some degree or potentially profitable, and he looks at all the areas where he can maximize that profit. Comes in, buys the business, puts the pieces in place to make it more profitable, grows it, and then gets that income from that business or then sells it on. So he's a genius at what he does. So he's heavy into like the business space. But I'm coming out next week to Dallas to speak at his event. He wants me to come out there and speak at his event. He also wants me to get do a screen capture video review of 100 of his people in his mastermind blood work. Just to going through a quick review of like what I see, the levers to pull, what to change, what to focus on. That is a guy who understands the importance of being a business athlete, and that you can do these deals, guys. You can get the real estate stuff. You can grow the business. But if you do not work on your health, eventually you're going to have to use the funds that you make from those deals in business to fuel like your sick care. Like, I do not want that for you guys. And I say this because my dad, like, I love my dad. He's a good man. He means well. He's a good man. But he has not looked after himself over the years. He has not. Like, in many ways, he's one of my best teachers because he's shown me everything that I could not become. Like, I look at what he does and I'm like, I must do the opposite. Guys, that's why I'm so invested in the health, because I've seen how bad my dad's health has got. Like, he has so many health problems and he's so wore out and unhealthy. He's overweight. He's got big swollen ankles, big bags under his eyes. He's on all types of medications. He's got this big gut that hangs out. He's a good man. Like, he's basically sacrificed himself for his family. Like, he's like, I want to provide for everyone I love. I'm just going to sacrifice myself like a sacrificial lamb. And I don't think that you have to do that. And so that's why I'm so passionate about this, because I've seen a lot of guys. This guy is like, I'm going to be 40 in November. And there's guys that I've done work with that would come to me and I'd look at them and I'm like, oh, that guy's probably like 50 years old. He looks about 50. He's my age. I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, dude, you look old, because he hasn't looked after himself. So the aging has just accelerated. And I think to myself, and I'll just share this with you guys. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, your wife cannot like this, bro. Like, your wife cannot like the way you are. Like, how is that attractive? First of all, how is that attractive? Like, she must not be attracted to you, bro. She must not. But beyond that, how are you going to ever have the energy to like spend time and pour into your family? Like, and there's a lot of people that fall into that trap, man, and they don't talk about it, where they just work so hard for like noble reasons, man. They're like, I need to get financial freedom. I do not want my family to suffer. I want my family to be comfortable. And they just push so hard, and they have no energy left to go play outside with their kids. You know, the kids are like, Daddy, I want to come out, play, kick the ball with me. Oh, I can't right now. I'm so tired. Like, that is such a shame. And like and so for me, that's why I want you guys to take this really seriously and recognize that this is not just about getting abs, man. This is about seriously making sure that you have a good quality of life. Ryan says, if you see this before my question above, you've actually answered a lot of the. Okay, cool. Awesome, brother. Jake says, how about dosing ibuprofen for reducing inflammation? Yeah, so what I would say, man, and this is a good question. So like I really try to steer clear of a lot of those NSAIDs, so the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. A lot of those, like ibuprofen, that type of stuff, it's been shown to have a lot of liver toxicity, and it has, honestly, like, it looks like it has a lot of like potential cardiovascular risk. So I've had people when they first start working with me, and they'll get like a bit of a cold, or they'll get a little strain, and they'll just be popping ibuprofen. I'm like, stop! Like, you need to like not even use that. What I would be doing is, in terms of like inflammation in general, think of adding in as many anti-inflammatory things as you can. And so if you go to ChatGPT and you search healthiest foods, highest in antioxidants, healthiest foods high in antioxidants. Let me pull it up right now. Let's do this. I've got the old GPT rocking. I use it kind of like as an extension of myself. Healthiest. Let's see this. Healthy foods high in antioxidants. So I use ChatGPT like it's like putting my brain on rocket boosters, basically. So it's got here berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries. What I always say, doing blueberries every day, dark chocolate. I do 1 or 2 squares of dark chocolate every day. I actually do the Blueprint, Brian Johnson's Blueprint supplement stack, and he has a dark cocoa powder that's got the highest flavanol content of any cocoa powder. So I do that every day. Green tea, nuts like walnuts, pecans, almonds, and then spinach, artichokes, red beans, beets, pomegranate seeds, carrots, oranges. So you can see how like the colors, right? If you added carrots, if you added beets, if you added spinach to your main meal, you're then checking off that rainbow concept, but you're stacking antioxidant compounds in hard. And that's what's going to slow down aging. It's what's going to help with recovery. It's what's going to make you look younger. Like, you're not going to age as fast. When you train hard, your body won't be as broken down. You're not going to get up the next morning and be like, oh God, I feel like the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. Like, that feeling is because you don't have enough like recovery substrate in your body. So really, really important. Todd, so we have one more break at 3:10. So we'll go to 3:10 and then we'll go all the way through to 4. So we still got time, guys. Todd says, how can we increase our blood flow other than moving our body? So I would say hydration is a big one. Make sure that you're getting a minimum of 1/2 ounce per pound of body weight in water. So if you're 200 pounds, a minimum of 100 ounces per day, minimum. Because if you're dehydrated, your blood will be very thick, very thick. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you're on like testosterone replacement therapy, it can make your hemoglobin and hematocrit run high if you're not dosing it properly. First of all, you need to dose it better. And second thing is doing quarterly blood donations. So a lot of longevity like fanatics will do regular blood donations. Go to like Red Cross, donate blood. There's actually, it's a really interesting thing. There seems to be a lot of longevity benefit in donating blood. There's mechanics behind that. I won't go into the details, but I would say like every quarter, go donate some blood. Another thing would be to make sure that I would even say, look for what ways or methods to help with vasodilation. So vasodilation is where like blood, like arterial, like open, vasoconstriction clamps down. What do you think is one of the biggest vasoconstrictors? Caffeine. Caffeine is a vasoconstrictor. Why do you think that when you consume too much caffeine, you get a headache? Vasoconstriction. It constricts the blood flow through your brain, which reduces oxygen uptake, and that's what drives the headache. So, like peppermint oil, a good quality essential oil, peppermint, sniffing on it, it's a vasodilator. So I'll actually use peppermint oil before I do my set sometimes. Say I've got my peppermint oil, open the thing, little sniff, vasodilation, and then I lift. So there's a little tip for you there. Peppermint oil before you do your lifts at the gym as a vasodilator. A lot of like powerlifters will use ammonia salts. Don't know if you guys are familiar with ammonia salts, but it's not good. Don't use ammonia salts. Use peppermint oil instead. I would say that there are other things, but I would say just for the sake of like keeping it relatively simple, those would be some of the main ones. Yeah, those would be some of the main ones I would say. Paul, what's up, buddy? So Paul says, we've got 2 minutes. I'll try and cover this quickly and then we'll jump on to some more. So keep the questions coming, guys, by the way. Paul says, I can attest to the BPC 157 results, to the peptides. I had my entire rotator and bicep reattached after a serious injury that completely tore all the tendons. My PT was amazed how fast my recovery was. Of course, I switched to a plant-based nutrition plan, awesome, as well as gave up alcohol during my recovery. I tell you guys, some of you guys may not really understand like a plant-based diet, but there's a reason why I've been this way for 12 years. I mean, my students will have a range of diets based on where they're at, what they like, what they need. But adding more whole plant foods into your diet is only going to help your blood markers, guys. It's like all the anti-inflammatory things typically will come from blueberries and colors, right? And so like if you do have injuries, things like BPC 157, TB 500, and GHK copper, which is a collagen producing peptide, can all help a lot with injuries. So when I did my quad strain, it was pretty bad to start with. And I used those peptides and now it feels like 90% better. And I'm sure it would have taken longer to recover. So anyway, guys, look, I think we're going to jump to our last little break. This is going to be a short one. So hang around. What I would say is for this last block, think about any more questions you've got. Throw them all at me, man. I want to give you guys as much good stuff as we can. And during this last block, I will be tying into everything, giving you like a summary of points to focus on for that 10 pounds of fat loss to keep it off. So I'll obviously summarize everything, put a nice little bow on it. You guys can take the notes and then you'll have something to go away with and execute on. All right, guys. So one last little break and then we'll be back and we'll rock it through to about 4 p.m. Eastern time.
All right, guys, I'm super excited to share all of the amazing things we've been working on in the Superhuman Upgrade School community. This is by far the most fun project I've worked on, and I'm grateful for all of the team members who've been helping us build this thing so quickly. I'm also extremely grateful for all of the high-level community members who've given us excellent feedback and continue to support us on this journey. The mission here is simple. We've designed a no-nonsense, simple approach to nutrition, training, supplementation, hydration, and maintaining your progress while being a productive mom, dad, entrepreneur, you name it. This program is the exact program I used to eliminate over 65 pounds of fat from my body while reversing my biological age by 6 years. I actually get my next round of blood work in a month or so, and I know for sure it's probably going to be reversed by 8 years or more. This is also the exact strategies my fiance Amanda used to remove over 50 pounds of fat while reversing her biological age by over 10 years. I make the joke that it's almost illegal to be engaged to her at this point. One of the things that was extremely attractive to me about this program was how easy it was to accomplish. There are a ton of programs out there that focus on being easy so they can appeal to the masses. And easy seems to be a thing that is heavily marketed in this fitness space. The challenge with most of these programs is that they're actually not very effective, which leads to a massive waste of time and money. If you're like me, you value both of these things and you're looking for something that just works right out of the gate. That is the Superhuman Upgrade program. So let's dive into all the programs you're going to get when you join today. First, we have the Begin Your Journey Here course. This is a collection of 14 short 2 to 7 minute videos designed to teach you how to use the app as well as how to get the most out of this program. Fraser explains the mindset required to achieving 1% results and how to effectively track your superhuman journey. This course is designed to take you from first gear and get into fifth gear quickly so you can begin on a proper foundation. Next is the Superhuman Upgrade Light course. This course includes the Superhuman Nutrition Protocol, Superhuman Hydration Protocol, Superhuman Supplement Protocol, and a library of superhuman at-home banded workouts, which allow you to maximize on your results at home should you not be able to make it to a gym. These are all of the foundational components that are going to get you to your desired results quickly. All you have to do is just come as a student, prepared to learn and execute. That's it. Next is the Superhuman Upgrade VIP course. This is a 43 video course where Fraser goes over all of the superhuman workout lingo, each day's unique exercises that he's tailored to achieve maximum results in the shortest amount of time. It also includes all of the workout trackers and nutritional protocols you need to eliminate that first 20 to 30 pounds of fat within the next 4 weeks while building valuable muscle mass. Now, because we always over-deliver, we've also included this superhuman travel protocol, which busy entrepreneurs who are traveling can utilize to keep all of their superhuman habits intact and not experience any loss of progress when they're traveling. We've also included the Superhuman Blood Work Protocol. In my opinion, the knowledge packed into this course is worth thousands of dollars on its own. I followed this course and learned so much about blood work and essentially how to hack my results by supplementing and eating properly based on biofeedback. You want this training so that you can live longer. As this community grows, we will continue to add massive amounts of additional training and resources. I'm excited to have you join us. As you can see here from the homepage, the investment is only $47 per month, and you'll be receiving well over $8,000 worth of training. The best part is that you can pause or cancel anytime. Not that you'd want to. So head over to www.superhumanschool.com, get registered, and I'll see you in the community. Now back to Fraser.
Back again, guys. So what I was even thinking was we'll go longer if we have to. Like, I want to tell you guys, like, I'm here for the long haul with you guys. So what we'll do is I'll make sure we won't have to finish at 4 hard on the dot. I will make sure all the questions are covered because we've even got questions that were submitted. So I'm going to go through it all, man. I'm like, hell, why not? We're here now. Let's do it. So if you guys are game with me, if you guys are game to go through it all, let's do it, man. And yeah, keep the questions coming too, by the way. And, you know, if you want, and if you've been getting some value, share. You know, if you go to Jordan's page, you'll see that he's streaming this. Go share this stream. Share it on your page. Tag someone. Man, let's get this information out there to people. there's just people out there I know who need help and they're struggling. And I genuinely believe that this type of knowledge is going to save people's lives literally. So I appreciate you guys. So we've got a question here. Josh is, when I do chest workouts, I feel like I'm working out my back muscles more than my chest. What am I doing wrong? I would typically tell you, man, to don't worry too much. They actually did some research on this where they looked at weight training. They looked at people lifting weights, and they looked at their subjective ability to like gauge the target muscle. So they said, right, you're going to do leg extensions. Do you feel it in your quad? And they played with the rep count. So like the heavier sets, they couldn't feel it as much. The lighter sets, they could feel it more. And what they found was that there was no real difference in the amount of muscle built if you can feel it or not. Because literally, dude, your chest is going to have to activate to go from here to here. To go from this position to here, your chest is going to have to activate. Now, you will feel your back work. And in fact, I would actually say that most people, when they're chest pressing, they don't actually brace their back enough. Like their shoulders are all like loosey-goosey. And that's when you get shoulder injuries. So what I tell people when I'm about to chest press, I actually like almost pull my like shoulder blades back and kind of get my back stiff. And then I drive from my chest. So if you can like squeeze your back, get it stiff, and then drive from your chest, it's way better on your shoulder joints and your rotator cuffs. So I would say in general, man, don't worry about that where you are right now. I would say not to worry about it too much, because if you're moving the weight from A to B, your chest is going to be getting activated anyway. In the research, it didn't make a difference if the person could feel it or not. As long as they were moving the weight from A to B, it was creating the effect, the muscle building effect. And I would say if you using a machine, like using machines, like if you're using like a barbell or dumbbells, it might be a little bit more challenging. If you use machines, it's going to kind of keep your form kind of locked in, and that might be a little bit easier. Maybe you are using a machine, but I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much early on in the journey, dude, like, because you're so new to all of this. Just doing the movement from A to B, and then over time, you'll develop those neural connections that will help you with that mind-muscle connection. Zach says, invested in Fraser's program 1.5 months ago and down almost 14 pounds. I'm getting lean, muscle is showing, and energy is up. This program is 100% legit. Zach, brother, thank you. And guys, if you don't follow Zach, go check him out on Facebook. This guy, what I love about Zach, and he kind of reminds me of Ryan Taylor and Jordan Solomon, is these guys just came in and they just were hungry to learn. They're hungry to learn, and they're hungry to just like push. And they were like men with like a real like focus. Like they had a real calling for self-improvement. Like Jordan, I don't know if you guys even know, but he shared with the story publicly, but he had $250,000 of like mastermind coaching payments that were due to come his way, where he would be running a mastermind where he's talking about investing and finances and business and all these things, atomic wealth strategies. And then obviously a component of a good life is like health. And at the time he was 65 pounds heavier. He was like pretty overweight, and his conscience could not do it. He's like, I cannot take this money. I cannot start this thing because like I'm not in integrity. And I see a lot of guys who are coaches in business masterminds, and they're teaching like, faith, fitness, finances, family, and they're not even in shape. And I'm like, you have to live your message, man. You have to. And if you're not there yet, that's all the more reason to get some goddamn help. For heaven's sakes, get some help, Eric says, what about tennis elbow? Been holding me back for 3 months. I would say with tennis elbow, there's a couple of things. So one, peptides can be useful, like BBC 157. But I would also say very often with tennis elbow, part of it can be you need to strengthen your extensor muscles. So what happens is if you're grabbing, like if you're typing a lot, if you're driving, if you're gripping weights, your flexors get very like stiff. And your extensors get weak, imbalanced. Too much tension, too much strength, too much weakness. That disproportionate strength puts pressure on the joint, and that's what causes some of these elbow impingements. So what you could do is you can, and I forget the name, Jordan, if you message Jordan, he got this thing from Amazon. I showed it to him. I can't remember what it's called. But it's like these little rubber bands that you put around your fingers, and it's got like a hub. It's like a hub with these like lines, and it's like a little workout device. And you literally like just go like this. And what you're doing is you're strengthening your extensor muscles. My musician client, Chris Daltrey, he had a lot of this problem too, because he's playing guitar all day. He's like holding the microphone. He's playing guitar, massive imbalances. So I got him to do a lot of this stuff. Also wearing like a compression cuff. So very often if you get a compression cuff, you can put it like right over that spot, and it's like a pressure point. And that can really help as well. So I would say antioxidant-rich diet. I would say using compression cuff, extensor exercises. I would also say playing with the rotation of your grip when you're pressing. So you might find that with like a pulling movement or a pushing movement, you might find that like you have to like go from this position, like overhand, to a neutral position, or even like a supinated position. So like play with the grip rotation. The grip rotation can really have an effect on like what gets exacerbated. Kenzie says, how much blood gets taken when we do the testing protocol, and do you recommend doing it right away or start by being consistent with the superhuman protocols first? So Kenzie, good question. So I would say when they take blood, it just depends on like how comprehensive the lab panel is. Like if you get a very basic one done, they might take like 2 or 3. If you get the more comprehensive one that I often suggest from like Murrick Health or Function, there's like Function from Murrick Health, and it's like the fully comprehensive one. It's usually going to be about 8 to 10 vials. It's quite a lot. So you do need to make sure you drink plenty of water, and you want to make sure that you have some type of food. Like take some food with you. So when like take some fruit or something. So right afterwards, if you're feeling a little bit lightheaded, have like a banana, have some, have something to kind of get into your system and some hydration. I would say, honestly, it's probably better to get your blood work done right away, guys. I wouldn't wait. And the reason why I say this is because then you know exactly what needs to change now, and you can start making those changes now. And the second thing is that you're not falling into this false sense of like health. So you want to see exactly where you are right now and all its honest truth. Because if you've been eating poorly and drinking and stuff, and then you go get your blood work done and your liver enzymes are through the roof and your C-reactive protein is really high, that's going to be a shock to the system. And if it gets you moving to action, like, holy crap, that's some terrible numbers, man. Wow. Like, I do not want that. Very often that can kind of like get you moving to like massive action, and then you frame it in a positive way. So I would say from a place of just expediting your result, because in that way you're not getting, like I've had people where they'll say things like, oh, I'm just going to start going and I'm going to start doing a few basic things first, and then I'll come back and get your coaching in like a month. And I'm like, you should have the other mentality of, why wait to get the blood work done? Why wait to get the help? Get the help now so you can get to your goal faster, right? So you get the blood work done now, you get to your goal faster. Michael Popper says calorie deficit is based on the standard 2,500 calories. I got you, dude, because he's talking about intermittent fasting and stuff. Yeah, and one of the ways, guys, to determine what a calorie deficit might look like for you is what I tell people to do is I tell them, and you don't have to obviously do this, but it can be a way to determine it, is track your calories for like 3 days, right? And just keep eating how you've been eating and weigh yourself every day. And if your weight over like a period of 3 days, I would say even a week's probably better. If your weight didn't change, like if your weight was kind of the same, usually that means you're right around maintenance calories. If you notice that your weight's slowly going up, it means that you're in a little bit of a surplus. If your weight's slowly coming down, it means you're in a little bit of a deficit. So very often what I'll do is I will get some of my students to track for a week to kind of determine where their maintenance calories is. Because if you're just using a calorie counting app like calculator online like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer, it's just like an algorithm that it's like an estimation. It's not factoring in your unique metabolism, your unique partitioning ratios, your hormone profiles, your insulin sensitivity, none of it. So you're much better off tracking your own calories for a week and then going, did I gain weight with the amount of food I was eating or did I stay the same? And if you stay the same, that means you're right around maintenance. Then if you want fat loss, you need to go under that maintenance level. So that's like this sort of, in my Superhuman Upgrade course, I use those principles, but I use them in cup measurements instead. So I'll basically say, look, if your weight didn't change, you need to decrease your cups of starches. So if you're doing 1 cup, go to 3/4 of a cup. If you're doing half a cup, go to 1/4 of a cup. So that way you're kind of downsizing those portions to bring the calories down to get yourself into that caloric deficit that you need for fat loss to even take place. Michael says, Todd says, yeah, dude, on day 45 of 75 here, the Superhuman Protocol has made this easy for me. I love it, dude. I love it. And you've been doing really well, man. Been doing really well. Michael says, you have mentioned minerals and water. Can you talk more about this? Yeah. So basically, guys, think about this. Think about, we don't just drink water or liquids for hydration. I mean, we're predominantly made out of water. So our cells, think of like this, the water in our body, it's like cellular lubrication. So we need the water for that cellular lubrication, but we also need a lot of minerals that are like basically like the building blocks for a lot of functions in the body. So think of like magnesium or boron or phosphorus, almost like the key to the ignition. So if you don't have those keys to put in the ignition and turn, to be able to turn the engine on and create the chemical reaction required to like be superhuman. Like you will feel low energy. You will get a lot of cravings. One of the obvious cravings, like if someone is craving salty foods, very often they're too sodium depleted. They've been sweating a lot. Maybe they've cleaned their diet up quite a bit, so their sodium intakes come down a lot, and they're sweating a lot. They're losing too much sodium, and their body's trying to send a signal to say, we need more sodium. And so with the concentrates mineral drops, for example, if you just search like on Amazon, like mineral drops for water, there's going to be a bunch of different ones you can get. And I add those to my water every day. Now, you can get spring water. So spring water is typically going to have naturally occurring trace minerals in it. So I would say as much as you can, get spring water to start with. But especially if you're filtering your own water, you want to remineralize it. Because if you don't, you're not going to be getting the keys to put in the ignition to turn on those systems in your body. I would say this is a big one for a lot of like high performers, like when they're not performing well, like mentally, if they're feeling kind of foggy, just kind of slow, they're probably missing certain minerals in the system. And think about this. If you're drinking a bunch of like reverse osmosis water that's got all the minerals stripped out of it, and you're drinking a lot of water, you're further diluting down the mineral content in your body. So now you're further diluting things. So you're going to have even more issues. So again, it's a good reminder that calories are one part of the equation. The other part of the equation when it comes to losing the 10 pounds of body fat and keeping it off is making sure that you're hitting all your mineral targets. Now, there's two ways to do that, and I'll just kind of segue into this real quick because this is useful. There's two ways to do that. One, track your calories, track everything you consume for 7 days on an app like Chronometer, and it's going to give you all your micronutrient targets. It's going to say you hit 75% of your daily recommended intake of vitamin C. You hit X amount of iron. You hit X amount of selenium. And then if you can notice that you're constantly undershooting a certain vitamin or mineral, that's when you need to start adding that thing in more in a whole food form if you can. Now, the more effective way of doing this is doing a hair mineral analysis. So with my one-on-one students, when they come to me, we'll run comprehensive blood work. We'll run a food sensitivity test. We'll do the Braverman test, and we'll do a hair mineral analysis. Now, the point of that is what it basically does is it takes your hair and it will literally look at the minerals in your hair. So it's not just guessing based on an app. It's literally looking at what you're actually absorbing. And so one of the cool things about looking at that is you can then really tell what you're low in. And you can also check your heavy metal exposure. You know, if you've had, if you've taken a lot of medications over your life, and or you've had a lot of vaccines, and or you've consumed like a really processed diet, you might have a ton of heavy metal toxicity in your body that's affecting you in ways that you don't even know. I mean, there's a lot of neurological stuff, autoimmune issues that come from heavy metal toxicity. So I know I kind of segued off there a little bit, but I just wanted to mention all of that because that does tie into like the hair mineral testing. And the mineral testing is obviously useful to know when it comes to water intake. Jordan says, my test went up 100% naturally just by following the protocols. Yeah. And so, guys, like I said before, it's so important to remember that if you solve problems in the right order, your body will respond. Now, you might get to a place where the results start to plateau down. That's when you can add extra things and you can do different things. There's always more things you can do. But there's so many easy wins that you guys could be having. Like, you know, in terms of just making sure you're like walking, getting your step count up, right? Making sure that your diet's predominantly whole foods, like macro stuff. Making sure that you're doing all the training principles that I just talked about. Making sure that you're getting to bed at a reasonable time and you're trying to optimize your sleep. Because if your sleep's not good, your cravings will be elevated. When your cravings are elevated, you will typically overeat calories. When you overeat calories, you're just gonna gain body fat. So those are the core principles. Ryan says, what strategies do you use when you are in a fat elimination phase but want to take part in family functions involving food or going out to dinner with family and friends? Really good question. Really good. So what I typically, and this is going to be useful for you guys when we come into things like Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, all that stuff. So what I will typically do, guys, and I actually do this, we'll do this in our Superhuman School group as we go through the year. So as we come into like Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'll even walk you guys through like the protocols I use to kind of prepare the body for something like Thanksgiving. So we'll have that in our Superhuman School group if you wanted to join. So basically what you do is like, let's say it's like a big event, right? And you really want to just have fun. I would be like stripping a few calories out a few days before, like 2 or 3 days before. I'd be going lower on calories. I'd be making sure that the diet's really clean. I would be making sure that the day that I have that meal, I weight train. So I would not do it on a rest day. I'd be making sure I weight train on that day. I would also be making sure that I weight train the next day. So it would not be like a weekend where you just be a glutton on a Saturday night and you're sedentary on a Saturday and Sunday. That's not ideal, guys. You need to try to make sure that you do your training on that day and the next day. Really important. I would also make sure that I do some type of intermittent fasting protocol. So I've done this a lot with Chris Daltrey because like he'll have like, family events with his kids or whatever. And while we're getting him leaner and leaner, he still needs to have some flexibility, but he's got to stay locked in. So we'll strip calories out through the day. We might skip like a main meal or we'll remove all the snacks. And then that way you're like removing a bunch of calories from earlier in the day so you can dedicate those calories to that meal, to that fun meal that you're going to have. The other things that I think are really important and to make sure that once you have that meal, you get straight back into focus right away, guys. Straight back in. Like don't have a bunch of leftovers in the fridge that you go back to and graze on for like 3 days straight. You got to get straight back into focus because it's real easy to start deviating and then you just lose focus over time completely. And that's when you'll end up falling off the wagon like so many people do. I'll often do what I call like bookends to my day. So I start the day really well with certain things and I end the day really well with certain things. So I'll start it with my Spring Dragon Longevity Tea. I might do like a green juice, like a Shuja cold pressed Uber Greens. I'll reduce my calories down. I'll weight train that day. And then at the end of the day, I'll do another green drink or greens powder with some more Spring Dragon Longevity Tea. And then I'll go to bed and I'll reset. So the two bookends of the day. It's kind of like encapsulating that meal. So there's like a start and there's an end. Done. And whatever happens in there, enjoy it. Now, one of the best tips I found, and this is really good for Thanksgivings, is make like a big, and this is obviously if you're making food like at someone's house. It's different if you're going out to eat somewhere. But if you're going to make something, make a massive tray of like oven roasted vegetables. So broccoli, carrots, beets, red peppers, zucchini, mushrooms, asparagus, and spray a little bit of like extra virgin olive oil spray so it sticks, and then put a bunch of like Italian seasoning and smoked paprika all over it, and even make like a little bit of like a healthier gravy. You don't ask me how to do that because Lauren does that. Like she's the gravy queen. There's ways you can do it. You just like search healthy low calorie gravies on Google. You'll find something. But that way it's not going to be a ton of calories from the gravy. And then that way you're having this like massive, you can put like 2/3 of your plate or 3/4 of your plate as fibrous vegetables covered with a bit of gravy. And like that will fill you up, and you're not going to have a shit ton of calories come from all these other places. Most people will have a bunch of real calorie dense stuff on their plate, and they'll be able to eat like 4,000 calories in one meal. I would rather have smaller portions of the other things, fill up on fibrous vegetables. So I feel full, it's pretty enjoyable, but it's low in calories. And that's the same principle like when you go to eat out. I would make sure that you eat some type of healthy meal before you go out. Now, I keep it pretty low in calories, so I just do like a big rainbow salad. A lot of fiber, get a big rainbow salad in there, just like a lot of fiber to fill up your digestion. So when you do go out, you're not like having like extra things, and you may not even necessarily need to eat like a big whole main meal, So I think making sure that you aren't starving when you go to eat out is really important, because if you're starving when you go to eat out, you are going to make crappy choices. You'll overeat, then you'll feel bloated. When you feel bloated, you'll just feel miserable. And like, that's not a good place to be, right? Like no one wants to feel that way. So that was a good question, man. Jake, you're very welcome, man. Jake had to run. Let's see what else we got. What else we got? Todd. And then we've got some questions in the messenger too, which I can cover. Todd says, what protocols or hacks do you use when you are driving long road trips? when you are going to be stuck behind the wheel for 6+ hours. I seem to get very tired and mentally fatigued during these trips. Yeah, and I think like that's always that's a tough one. You know, it's a tough one because like I don't like that either, right? Like I find for me, I definitely feel kind of tired as well. What I found is taking like short breaks where you get out of the vehicle like every hour and just pump out like 20 or 30 push-ups. Like I find just kind of like stimulating your body. I know it doesn't sound like most people wouldn't do that. I do it because like I don't want to like be half asleep and then start like taking tons of caffeine or just like grazing and snacking on crappy foods because I'm tired. So I'll get out, I'll use the bathroom, I'll pump out some push-ups, I'll jump back in. And I would say things like Shuja cold pressed juices. So SUJA, Shuja cold pressed juices. I would crank veggie sticks. So rather than eating like bags of trail mix and peanuts and all the stuff that people go for, cut up a bunch of like cucumbers and zucchinis and carrots and have like a little thing of like Dijon mustard and just kind of dip veggie sticks and just munch away on veggie sticks. I find between munching on something like that, between busting out a few push-ups, between doing the Shuja cold pressed juices, that's usually going to be the best way to combat these challenges. And then what I would also do is I would make sure that wherever you're going, you know, like where the healthy food spot is, you know, like where you're going to be going to get like a meal that's healthy for you. Or I would take the healthy meal with you, like in a pack, cooler pack somehow. Like you've got to do a little bit of like preparation if you want to make sure that you don't just like mentally wear down and then just get fast food. Because that's like, you don't want to get to that point where you're in a vehicle for a long time, you're just feeling exhausted, so you just swing through Burger King. That's like the worst thing you could do. So I would say that's when having a meal prepared that you take with you, or if you know you're coming back home, and making sure that there's something ready. Like, for example, when I'm out, and if I know I'm going to be out for a while, I'll even message Lauren, and I'll say, hey, like, I'm not going to be back till like 6 or 7 or whatever. Do you think you could like throw a little healthy meal together for me? So she'll kind of throw something together. So as soon as I walk in the door, it's like ready to go. Like you don't want to have that gap between getting to the location, getting home, and then being like, well, what do I have to do now? And you're tired. So you just be grazing and eating crappy foods. You need to collapse that time window so you can go from like where you are to that good decision as fast as possible. It's so important, man. I mean, I've had to do this. It's a good question. And it's one that if you can master that, it's a game changer. So there's a few questions here as well. I want to kind of rattle these off because these will definitely tie into the whole concept of, you know, losing 10 pounds of body fat, keeping it off type principle. What are the best exercises for beginners to start with? You know, I would tell you this is going to come back to the ROI of exercises, right? So I tell people like your big compound lifts are going to be the best things to practice and get used to. So deadlifts, squats, lunges, chest presses, rows, pull-ups or pull-downs, overhead presses, stuff like that. Because you got to realize, guys, like not all exercises are created equal. But when you do those bigger compound lifts, they activate a lot of different muscle groups in your body, and that's going to have a better overall metabolic effect than if you just did bicep curls or if you just did abs. Like a lot of people will do a lot of ab training because they want abs, but really they need to be doing these bigger movements like deadlifts and squats to burn more calories, to build more muscle, to raise that metabolic rate and burn more calories while they're resting, and then they'll get leaner long term. So that's, again, that principle. That's how you keep the weight off, is prioritizing compound lifts in your training, doing them at least 2 times a week. So doing legs twice a week, doing back twice a week, if you can, obviously. What should I do if I hit a plateau in my progress? So again, kind of like I mentioned to you, it's a really important principle around like looking at, are you progressively overloading your training properly? Meaning, are you just going in and hitting the same weight with the same reps over and over and over again? Because if you are, you need to either consciously try to increase the weight or squeeze out 1 or 2 extra reps with that weight. Otherwise, you will not create the environment needed to create the muscle building response that you're looking for. The other thing I would say is, I would even, if you haven't been tracking your calories and you've just been eyeballing, track for like 3 days. You will be amazed often at how many things actually need adjusting when you track. You might be way undershooting your protein count. You might be overeating way too many calories from other places and be like, wow, like I need to increase my protein. I need to decrease my starchy carbohydrates and my fats. And then that way you can dial those numbers in, and that busts through that plateau. It sounds obvious, but most people won't do it until you say that, you know? How can I stay motivated and consistent with my workouts? This is a good one. These are good ones. So like I would say, guys, you've got to get it done earlier in the day. Like unless it's habitual, like unless you are getting it done every day and you've proven to yourself you can get it done every day and you're not missing, then I would always try and train in the morning at some point. Like if you train in the afternoon or evening, but you're consistent, that's fine. But if you're not consistent, you need to get it off the list early. What happens is you go through your day when you're dealing with like putting fires out and stress in business and stress in family, all these things. The more mental fatigue that you have, the less likely you will be to get that shit done. So you need to put your oxygen mask on first and get it off the list first. The other thing that I would say is like have some form of accountability. Get into Superhuman School with me and Jordan and everyone else. Or like reach out to me for some coaching and stuff. Like if you don't have some type of accountability mechanism, when push comes to shove, you have a hard week and you're not accountable to anyone, you can just bail and do whatever you want. And that's not ideal, guys. It's not ideal. And then the other thing that I would say is making sure that you're like habit stacking it in a way, like you understand your own psychology in the sense that if you know that you're not going to be likely to get up and go to the gym, build out a little home gym at home. Like if that's your affinity. Or equally, if your affinity is like you're not going to be motivated to work out at home by yourself, get that gym membership to go to the gym. Think about like what is more appealing to you and do that thing. Home gym, home workout, or gym workout, doesn't matter. Whatever you're consistent with. That's the thing. And the last thing is you've got to have some type of like tangible target you're shooting towards. I call this like stitching your goals together, where you have to set like a target. Like I would say to you, like, I mean, a target for me, for example, is in 2 weeks, I'm going to shoot this music video stuff with Chris Daughtry, and I'm getting a videographer out there. We're going to be shooting a bunch of content. I want to look real good for that. So that's my target I'm shooting for to keep me locked in today. Like another one could be if you're an entrepreneur and you've got like old pictures of yourself from like 2 years ago and you've gained a bunch of weight and you're like look way older and out of shape now than in your pictures, that's not very good. Like you do, like I see people do that and I'm like, dude, you look so much different now. Like level up. So what I would tell you is use that as motivation. Book yourself an updated marketing and branding video and photo shoot for like 8 weeks, 12 weeks from now. Put your head down, transform, and go get a bunch of new content taken. Right? So that could be a motivation if you're an entrepreneur. Or maybe it's just more of a personal thing where you want to go get new blood work run in 8 weeks. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that all these markers in 8 weeks are way better than what that first panel was. And so you put your head down and you just work towards that. So, because you know in 8 weeks, you're going to go run that next panel. What I'm saying is you need to have targets you're shooting for. If you do not have a date or a target or some type of commitment, over time, you're just going to kind of get jaded and you'll start cutting corners. So you've got to think about that, guys. It's super, super important. Jen says, being a woman, how many extra daily calories above maintenance do I need to add daily? It just depends on your goal, Jen. It depends on your goal and your body composition. Like if you're a woman, but you're like 50 pounds overweight, you don't need to add calories above your maintenance. Like if you are, so like what I would say is like fundamentally male or female, it doesn't really matter. What matters is like where your body composition is right now and where you want to be. So just general rule of thumb, most people probably want to lose some body fat, right? So what I would typically tell people is first, you just want to kind of get a feel of like what your maintenance calories looks like. And so maintenance calories will be the amount of food you consume every day where your weight doesn't change. Now, if you wanted to get a little bit of fat loss, you might dip 300 calories below that, 200 or 300 calories. So if you're at 2,000 for maintenance, you might go to like 1,800 or 1,700, right? So sometimes you'll find just that little dip. Or if you're someone who wants to build some muscle and you're like a thinner person, you might go from 2,000 up to like 2,300. So you don't need to do like a massive spike or a massive dip. Very often it's just a little tweak because you don't want to gain like a bunch of extra body fat if you're trying to build muscle. And equally, you don't want to be like starving yourself if you're trying to get down real quick. But what I would say is that over 4 weeks, you could cut your calories pretty hard, use essential amino acids to kind of protect your muscle mass, maintain your strength by lifting relatively heavy weight, and you'll find that your body will respond pretty well. Like you should be able to lose a good amount of body fat over that time if you have a good nutritional plan. Greg says, do you recommend HIIT cardio? If so, how many minutes? Yeah, so like, again, it's this principle of like, what is the goal? I would say generally speaking, man, yeah, I think a little bit of HIIT stuff is good. I don't always suggest it straight away for like beginners because it can be quite taxing. And like the wear and tear on the body can get kind of intense. It's just challenging for people when they first begin. But if you're like a little bit more experienced or intermediate, I think doing like a 4 to 8 minute HIIT session at the end of a workout can be really useful. So sometimes what I'll do, and I've started doing a little bit of this in the afternoon, I'll do like a 6 to 8 minute like dumbbell swing session where I basically have like my one hand on the dumbbell. I'll swing like 10 or 15 reps one side, 10 or 15 reps the other side. Like that's like a kettlebell swing, but holding the dumbbell. And I'll basically just pump it out. And I'll do like bursts, like rounds of like 10 and 10, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth as fast as I can for like 8 minutes. Gets that heart rate up, gets that breathing. Like you could do like burpees, you could pump out some burpees, you could do some jump rope. But I would say probably 2 to 3 sessions per week, 4 to 8 minutes at the end of a weight training session. It's probably ideal, man. Obviously, like you can do more than that, but again, it's one of those things where I wouldn't want to overstress the nervous system too much. I think what I try and do with a lot of people is I try to make sure that we do like a minimum effective dose concept where we're not like doing too much stressful stuff right away, because otherwise your hunger hormones are going to go up. You're going to get a lot of central nervous system fatigue. You'll feel tired. I want to try to minimize that first, get as many results as we can, and then add that in if we need to. Good question. What supplements should I consider to enhance my results? So, guys, I would say like typically a general rule of thumb is supplementation is just that. It's supplementary to like a good base, right? So like if you want a supplement stack for like losing 10 pounds over the next like 4 weeks, like I talked about in this like masterclass concept, it would be creatine monohydrate. So I would do 10 grams per day. Most people will go with 5, but 10 grams has been shown to help with cognitive function. So I do 10 grams of creatine monohydrate. I do essential amino acids. I would do mineral drops. I would do an omega-3 supplement, so essential fatty acids. So you're basically getting essential fatty acids, essential amino acids, minerals, creatine, and then some type of like high quality multivitamin. So like the one I use is the Healthy Cell AM/PM multivitamin. So I think if you did all of that, you would be covering most of your bases. Yes, there's other things you could use, but I think generally speaking, that's a very good foundation. And there are other stuff you can use, but that would be a good base. How to mitigate excess skin when slimming down. Does the superhuman protocol account for this, or is it unavoidable? So yeah, one of the challenges that some of you guys will find is that if you've been really overweight, as you lose weight, depending on how much collagen and elastin you have in your skin, it can sometimes take a while for it to come back and not be stretched. And sometimes you will have permanent stretching. So I would say if you're in that position where you have permanent stretching, it's unfortunate in the sense that some people will need surgery. They'll literally need to have like their skin removed. But I definitely don't think most people need to jump to that point straight away. Most people do not. What I would be saying is I'd be trying to use like a vitamin E oil. I'd be probably using some vitamin E as supplementation. I'd be using vitamin E topical oil. I'd be using like a vitamin C and retinol topical like solution on that area as well. I'd be using collagen peptides and or GHK copper peptide. So GHK copper is a collagen producing peptide. So I definitely use that. And I'm trying to think of what else. Zach, thank you for being on, buddy. I appreciate you, brother. I would also try this concept called gua sha. It's one of these Chinese sort of Eastern practices. Some people might think it's a bunch of woo-woo, but I think there's a lot of these practices that science doesn't really understand that do work. So gua sha, Guasha, gua sha. And it's basically like you're using like the backside of like a stone or like a comb and like running the lymphatic fluid and like along your skin. So it would be like when I'm in the shower, I'll put soap on and then I'll use like a gua sha tool, which is like this sort of flat stone. And I'll literally just go across my chest like this. I'll go under my chest and around into my armpit. I'll go down the front of my abs. And I notice there's a tangible difference in like my water retention and in my body fat distribution afterwards. I would also say that action helps with blood and lymphatic system movement. And I would say that in theory, any stuff like that is going to help pull toxins and move blood to those areas to help mobilize fat and help kind of with like skin quality. Like your skin. And the last thing is even things like using like a derma roller. So a derma roller, these little tiny little like pins. And you can use it on your face. You can use it on the area. And basically it helps with collagen production. So it sort of does like little micro things, little micro pricks in the skin and can help with collagen production. Ryan says, any risks of things like kidney stones if we overuse trace minerals and multivitamins? Yeah, I mean, one of the things I would say to at least be wary of is I would say, once or twice a year, get a hair mineral analysis done, if you can, obviously, because that will give you a really good indicator of like, are you going overboard? Are you getting too much? I do think there is such a thing as too much, right? So like, if you're taking a multivitamin that has multi-minerals in it, and then you're adding in a lot of mineral drops as well, you might be getting too much of stuff. So that's, again, why it can be useful to get these other tests done. I would typically tell, like, if you're just taking the stock standard dosages, especially for someone like you that's more advanced, you're going to be sweating more, your output's going to be higher. I can't see you being, like, too high in any of those things because of your output and like your requirements. You think of like you're like a high performance engine, you're going to need more octane, you're going to need more like substrate for the engine to run, basically. Good question, man. This This is a good one. What breathing protocol do you use while lifting weights? This is a good one because this is one that like not a lot of people really talk about. So what I do, and you won't see this when I'm training because you won't be able to tell, but what I do, let's say I'm doing like a chest press. And I would tell you guys to really pay attention and try this because this does work. So as you're coming down, inhale through your nose, like you're sucking air in as you're coming down. And then at the bottom, you exhale. So you inhale, 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 exhale. And if you do that on most movements, like if you're doing it on a pull down, for example, you'll inhale, 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 exhale, right? So you inhale on the eccentric and you exhale on the concentric. I found that your breathing is almost like a piston. It's like a piston of a vehicle. Like if you inhale and then exhale, it's like you can literally create more like force. So that's why you'll see me like move the weight like so explosively because I'm using my breathing like a piston. And I find that also it's going to help you get more reps out because if you're holding your breath the whole time, that oxygen depletion is going to make you run out of ATP faster. And ATP is what helps muscle contraction and you'll hit that wall quicker. So by reoxygenating your system more, you'll extend your ATP threshold so you'll get that 1 or 2 extra reps out that normally you might not have got out. Let's see what else we got here. What else we got? I think that's probably it, guys. Because a lot of the other questions that I'm looking at here have kind of been covered in different parts. So what I'll do is let's summarize this, right? Let's put this together. So what I would be doing if you wanted to maximize fat loss in the next 4 weeks, 10 pounds, keep it off, all that good stuff, I would be training each muscle group 2 times a week. I would be making sure that you fall between 5 and 15 reps. I would be making sure that you are trying to maintain as much strength as you can. So you are not going lighter and just pumping out a bunch of goddamn reps. You're trying to get close to mechanical failure with every single set that you do. I'd be making sure that you are walking 15 to 20,000 steps per day, like getting a standing desk in a treadmill. I would be at some point during the day getting outside to walk in the fresh air, on a call, listening to a podcast. I would put on a weighted vest. I would wear a weighted vest for at least 30 to 60 minutes every day while you're taking a walk at some point. That weighted vest will keep metabolism more elevated. I would be making sure that you use that formula that I said with your calories to kind of know where you are with your calories. So about 1 gram per pound of body weight. I'd be then taking your body weight, multiplying it by 9. That's going to give you your total calorie target for a deficit for fat loss. I'd be subtracting your protein and calories, and then whatever calories are left, that's going to be partitioned to whole food fats and rainbow vegetables and starchy carbohydrates. That's kind of how you want to do it. I'd be focusing on the rainbow concept every single day. Where's my red? Where's my green? Where's my orange? I'd be doing some type of intermittent fasting protocol, like a 24-hour fast on a rest day, or I'd be fasting through to after you train in the morning and then having a slightly earlier dinner, right? What else is there? What am I doing? I would, you can add in a little bit of like HIIT training, like 4 to 8 minutes of like burpees or 4 to 8 minutes of kettlebell swings or 4 to 8 minutes of jump rope. Something to just get that heart rate up. It helps with burning visceral fat, so fat around your organs. I'd be making sure you prioritize sleep. So you want to try to get to bed a little bit earlier, have your dinner meal slightly earlier in the day. Make sure that you're turning the air temperature down in your house. You're putting blue light blocking filters on your phones and computers. You're turning off a lot of the interior light in the evening and just using like Himalayan salt lamps and diffusers. So you're not getting like a lot of that bright light. I'd be making sure you get your blood work run so you know exactly what you're working with. Do you need to increase your vitamin D? Do you need to increase your vitamin B12? Are your sex hormones out of whack? And do you need to optimize those somehow, right? The last thing, guys, that I want to tell you is you need to be in an ecosystem where people are going to be pushing you. So again, that's why I would highly encourage you to get into my Superhuman School community, www.superhumanschool.com, if you're not already there. If you're already in there and you want more help, message me or Jordan directly, and we can figure out what level might work for you. Because I've worked with like the top guys. I work with everyone, like from the top down. And I'm not, and part of the reason why I have the school community and why I do the stuff with the courses is because I didn't want to just be like helping just these like ultra wealthy people. Like I wanted to be able to help like average everyday people that just want to have a good life, man. Like that was definitely a challenge that I had to solve. And that's why I created Superhuman School, to give people these resources and this information. The tactics will mean nothing if you do not change who you are. People say, well, like, what do I have to do? It's not what, it's who you need to become. I mean, the person that I am now, guys, I wish you guys could have known me in my old life. Because one of the guys that I'm good friends with, you've probably seen him maybe on my page. His name's Matt Brooks. So if you search Matt Brooks, he's a musician. He's one of the guitarists for this band called Like a Storm. And Like a Storm is probably the biggest New Zealand band in history. They're massive, for New Zealand at least. And I've known him. We've known each other since we were like 10 years old. And we talk almost every day. And I've often said to him, I'm like, dude, I wish that I could show people like how I used to be 20 years ago. I wish, because he's like, bro, it's like that version of you died. You are so far from who that guy used to be. It's like two different people. I mean, people have even seen my old pictures and they're like, dude, you don't even look the same. Like, you look different. I actually think everything changed. Like, my physiology changed. I think when you optimize your physiology, like, it optimizes like your musculature. Like, my jawline's different, my neck is different, my eyes are brighter, everything. And I say this to you guys because it's not enough, man, to just like be this business beast, but you're like overweight, wearing these baggy ass polo shirts, and you know that you could be better. And it's not here to shame anyone, because I've been in that place. You know, I've been super skinny when I was on a bunch of Ritalin and stimulants, and then when I got off a lot of those medications, I couldn't control my diet and I got fat. So I've actually been in a very unique place where I've been both. How many people do you know that have been both? I mean, both. So I know what it's like to be like a thin-looking stick, and people are like, "Damn, dude, do you have cancer or something?" You know, I've had people comment like, "Bro, like, is something wrong with you?" And then at the other end, I've had people be like, "Damn, dude, like you're kind of big." And at the time, I couldn't even see how big I got. Like, I look back at pictures and I'm like, wow, like my face was so swollen. And obviously people, like, most people are not going to tell you. Most people are not going to be like, dude, you're super fat. What are you doing? Because it's rude, right? And it's triggering. Like, a lot of people, like, it's a very sensitive topic. And I look back now and I'm like, I couldn't see it. And I tell you, man, like, I want this level of progress for all of you guys. But it does come down to like who you need to become. You must change your character. You must change your environment. You must change the types of discussions you're having. And you've got to get around people that are just like at a high level wanting to get more out of life. So get into my Superhuman School. Message me if you want extra coaching. You can go do whatever you want. You can bootleg it if you want. But I'm telling you now, the pros, get help from the pros, amateurs bootleg. You can go to someone else if you want to. But I would just say, you need teachers and mentors. I'll leave you with this. Like, I have found that with my personality type, I literally need to like invest money to put skin in the game to move me to take action. it's funny. It's kind of silly when you think about it, right? But if I get something given to me for free, I just don't really use it. I'm like, yeah, I'll use it like when I'm not so busy, right? But when I like last year, for example, we spent $172,000 in mentors and coaches. $172,000. And what I found was that every level was scary, but it moved me to such a massive level of action that the result was like tenfold. So very often people are like really hesitant to invest in themselves, especially like a bigger investment. They'll penny pinch and they'll find every reason why they can't. But then what happens is you just stay in this like holding pattern where you never really break free and you're just kind of dog paddling, right? You're just dog paddling. And you're like, my God, when is this going to improve? Part of it is like, you've got to be able to take that leap of faith. You've got to be able to take that massive, decisive action at the front end to create a different downstream effect. It sounds obvious, but obviously, when people are in their own body and they're in their own life, we can get lost in the noise. We get lost in the noise and we just don't think about those things, right? But anyway, guys, look, 3 hours and 13 minutes in. I appreciate all of you guys. What I would love is if you're in Superhuman School, I would love for you to share like what were some of the lessons that you got. Maybe even if you took notes, if you got a summary, share your wisdom from this call into Superhuman School. I would love it. That would like light me up. Another thing that you could do is if you are not in Superhuman School, I highly encourage you to get in there with me. But if you're not, share, like tag someone in, like, if you go to Jordan Solomon's page, tag someone that you think might be interested in this live stream, or share it from his page to your page, right? Or drop a comment on the video, just saying 1 or 2 nuggets that you got out of it, just to help with the algorithm. Guys, help me get this out there to people. One of the things, I'll be honest with you guys, I know that I'm very, very good at what I do, but I also know that I'm not, to this point, haven't been the best when it comes to like marketing and getting myself out there. And so that's why Jordan's helping me, because like, he's like, dude, like you are so good at what you do. We need to get more people knowing who you are. And so you guys can help me with that by sharing my stuff, interacting on my stuff, right? Going to interact on my page, dropping comments. That helps the algorithm on my page. Like, guys, I appreciate that stuff more than you know, because every day I go out there with the intention of trying to bring value, and we're essentially at the mercy of the Facebook algorithms. And so having people comment and interact, it's such a game changer. Anyway, guys, I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your Friday. What I would say is implement something that you heard on this call. When you get off this, go order that supplement, go book that thing, go to the grocery store and get those products. Literally take something that I said and turn it into real world action. Do not just have a bunch of goddamn notes that just get dusty in the corner of your office. Take it, turn it into real world action, and then share it. All right, guys, I appreciate all of you. Have a beautiful rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend. And I'm sure I'll talk to you guys on social media. All right, guys. See you later.